Making your way through the daily grind takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to tune away? All those nights when you're feeling low, the rent is overdue, and your coffee maker's broken, your luck just seems to skew, and your boss is always on your case. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. Roll out of bed and you feel the dread. The morning's looking bleak, and your internet is down again. You haven't slept all week, and your car just broke down on the way. Be glad there's a place online where you can feel at ease. In the Barroom Podcast, friends, we share our thoughts and tease. Every story shared, every laugh so free. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. So here's to the moments we all hold dear, in this barroom of the airways with friends so near. Every story shared, every heartfelt cheer. It's more than just a podcast, it's where we steer. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. So tune in with Unwind, let the stories unfold. In this haven of voices where camaraderie is gold. The Barroom Podcast, the home away from home, where laughter is the language and you'll never be alone. Where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came.
Yo, all infidels, we're back here for episode 169, right? 169, okay, 169 of the Barroom Podcast. I don't know why that number broke me for some reason, but yeah, we're back here for 169 of the Barroom Podcast. I'm joined here with my good buddy Robert Motto, joining us here for a good show tonight. How you doing?
Yeah, my given name is Robert. Just so you guys know, you can look me up online. I wouldn't suggest it because there's really nothing to find. No, my Twitter comes up and that's fine. And I'm just really glad that knock on wood, I'm just glad that my employer hasn't had any issue with me lately, and so that's good. I'm really excited for Medicare enrollment to start tomorrow. Not really. But no, I'm excited because I've been basically doing nothing but getting my license for the last 10 months and waiting for this time period to come. So it's a super busy 7-week period. But yeah, it starts tomorrow. I'm looking forward. Well, yeah, might get some money out of it. So I hope that's the benefit. But yeah, I'm happy to be here.
In all seriousness, I will commend you for being as employed for as long as you have been employed, because there's been some stretches there where you haven't been employed this long. So yeah, knock on wood, keep everything on the right track there. So
yep.
It's good to hear things are going well. Yeah, I feel like tonight's going to be a little bit more of a streamlined show now that it's just me and you. We don't have all the other noise that we call people that are on the show here tonight. But then again, that might not last very long. So that saying can age very, very poorly within like 30 minutes or so. But yeah, it's just us here tonight. Cider's feeling a little bit under, so he's not going to be on here tonight. Eddie, I think he's been off for the last couple of weeks. And then Rick may or may not show up here. But I'm completely ready for us just going one-on-one for this whole show here tonight, because I think we have the gumption here to do it. So quick little note here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everyone who's joining us in the chat right now. So let's go ahead and introduce Leslie Tarkin joining us here on the YouTube side of things. Keith joining us here on the YouTube side of things as well. He also says that he's going to move back to Rumble soon. Glad that you pointed that out, because that'll go over to our first point here of the night. But who else we got here? Vanya's joining us here as well. Rob will be in the chat with you guys. JT joining us here tonight as well. Pretty much addressed Cider and Eddie for tonight as well. Marks and fellow infidels as well. Terminator Joe joining us here. So, couple of things about kind of the direction of the channel moving forward. As you guys know, I've been reshuffling a lot of things on the actual web page over the course of the last few weeks. It's gotten a lot of updates, a lot of content has been uploaded there as well. I haven't gotten to essentially to the point where I can update a lot of the things with the actual YouTube page as well too, even though there's going to be a lot of edits coming up there. So here's what's going to happen here. The Bible Lens podcast, which is on Sunday, it is moving up in time. So the Bible Lens on Sunday will now take place at 3 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. So same day, but an earlier time. The reason why is because this allows me to free up a little bit more time on a Sunday to do both morning and evening services, because I'm adding a little bit more to my plate on Sunday. So I got to make everything work. So basically doing the show in between those services works out perfectly. It's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're on the West Coast, it'll be noon West Coast time. That'll be the new time. Same day, just different time. So that's the only thing that's going to change there. As far as the ballroom goes, it's essentially by November, which is literally 3 weeks from now. So in 3 weeks from now, the ballroom will move to a Rumble exclusive show. And it's not really Rumble exclusive. I'm still streaming on X as well. But essentially, the ballroom will no longer stream on YouTube, but there's a few reasons for that. A couple of the more, I guess, irritating reasons with the show, especially recently dealing with YouTube, just give you guys a little behind the scenes here, is that YouTube has been cracking down on the censorship and the demonetization more than normal over the course of the last several weeks, which isn't really a surprise. We've been complaining about this for a while. It is what it is when you're on a Google platform. But essentially, I would say for the last 2 months, all of the shows have been demonetized. And here's what I've been saying for a very long time. I have a very colorful group of people on the show all the time. Never once have I ever told anyone what to say or not to say. And I don't feel like I should have to tell anyone what to say, what not to say. It's like, obviously don't go out and spurg and like dropping N-bombs and talking about the Jews or anything like that. But I mean, within reason, I don't tell anyone what to say here, right? Because to me, that takes away from being the show. And I don't want to run this show like a quote unquote professional type of show. I have people who are, I guess, full-time YouTubers who do that, and I understand it from their perspective. It's like, it's their business, it's their life. They can do like whatever they want to do there. I don't want to have to play the YouTube game in order to have success here on YouTube. And something that I've noticed here over the course of the last several weeks is that the algorithm on YouTube is so manipulated, even in the search engine, it's completely difficult for anyone to actually find the show. And I've had issues with notifications not being sent out. You can click the bell and all that good stuff. It still won't send it out if you're on a certain list for saying things that YouTube doesn't want you to talk about. And I'm not going to avoid those topics just to please YouTube. So that's been an issue. There's been a couple of shows that I've literally had to fight to put back on the platform. There was one episode of YouTube from about a year ago that is still banned on this platform. It was the week that after Donald Trump got shot before the election. And YouTube will not allow me to upload that episode because I suggested that people were actively trying to kill Donald Trump. Apparently that is a violation of YouTube's standards, and they legitimately gave me a 30-day warning for re-uploading it months later. So they do not want me to put that episode up there whatsoever. I've had issues with certain companies with completely bogus copyright claims that have blocked the videos worldwide. I have to go back after the fact, either dispute it, which takes a handful of days, which means that an episode on YouTube could get blocked for upwards of a week to 30 days, which is very, very annoying, or it gets blocked in certain regions of the world. I've had to do manual things behind the scenes too. Some of them have worked out in our favor. Other ones are just like, if it's too big of a company, you're just not going to win. That's just the way that it goes. And I feel like there's a lot of things that I would like to do with this show that I would like to be able to show here, and I can't do that on the YouTube platform. So it's just gotten to the point now where it's like, you know, with all the suppression, with all the censorship, with all the YouTube stuff that goes on behind the scenes, it's very, very difficult for this show to actually grow in a natural way when you're trying to fight literally everything. I don't think there's much of a point in doing that. Plus, like I said, another thing that I've noticed is that with the Bible Lens content, it's very, very difficult for it to mix in with the barroom stuff as well. So I figured the best way to do this moving forward is that with this channel, the YouTube channel, we're going to continue with the Bible Lens on Sunday. I'm bringing back the 511 show. I'm basically just trying to get all of the updated changes on the YouTube and on the site as well before I bring that back, but I'm bringing that back as well. So you're going to see a lot of that content. And then I'm still going to have clips of this show on the YouTube as well, because it seems like the clips do a lot better than the live streams do for a multitude of reasons. And then the Barroom, we're not moving any time. We're not moving any date. It's going to be same time, same date. It'll just be on YouTube exclusively. So I have the link right here to YouTube. Just going to let you guys know moving forward that in 3 weeks we will be on Rumble full time. We won't be here on YouTube. That doesn't mean that this channel is going away, and we're just changing up how we produce the content and how we release the content on here. To me, it'll be a lot easier to do this show on Rumble than it is on YouTube at this point. And like I said, I'm fortunately in a position where I'm not in a position where I have to worry about, the money and the growth and like all these other things. So it's allowed me to actually kind of step back and be like, okay, what direction do I really want to go moving forward with a lot of different projects? So it's a moment of clarity that is desperately needed. So changes will be made here in the coming weeks. So that is the link to the Rumble channel. I suggest you guys subscribe. If you don't have Rumble, go ahead and create an account now, because we will be there in a few weeks. So just letting you guys know, giving you guys a heads up just for any changes there. What else do we got going on here? Secure Media is joining us here. Yeah, Leslie. It's just the way that it is. It's Google. I mean, Google's not going to get any better. So at some point, you just got to make a decision. That's just the way that it is. But I mean, at least, going to Rumble, I don't have to worry about, I can't play this 5-second clip and having a 2.5 hour stream blocked for several days because somebody made a bullshit claim from China somewhere that I have to dispute in a foreign language. That's always fun. So yeah, I don't have to deal with any of that stuff anymore. And there's probably a lot more content we actually get to play on here too. So there's a few advantages to it at this point. And yeah, Grandpa Rick will have to find Rumble. Like I said, the StreamYard changes virtually nothing outside of just where we're streaming it to. And then, like I said, I think ultimately this show will do a lot better on a Rumble than it has on YouTube. So, like I said, we're taking the chance with a handful of things. I think it's going to work out at the end. So, Rob, Rob. For some reason, I thought I called you Rick, and I was like, oh, that's not right. But no, that totally is right. How's your day been? Yeah, fine, sir. How's things going with you? Because we don't have Neozoic here to give us our beginning topic, so it's like, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, it is fine. I mean, I had one of those mornings where I was up at 3:30, looking at my phone till my alarm went off at 5, so I could get up and go work out and do all that fun stuff before work. And it just spent, I had a couple calls with people looking into their insurance for next year, and that was pretty much it. And then I drove home and 45 minutes away in rush hour traffic in Harrisburg, so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I wish I had more to talk about, but for the most part, I'm just kind of getting into horror movies for like Halloween season. And like I just threw on the House of Usher, that Mike Flanagan Netflix series, and it was like, whatever, this sucks. It's like it's the same thing. You have like, okay, it's fine, but then you have like the casting where like the white guy's family has like black members of it, and it's like, yeah, okay, I don't care. I just, guys, like, it's everywhere. It's like I can't even watch like just a throwaway like adaptation of an Edgar Allan Poe story without this whole like, oh sweet, I get it, because it's representational of.
Did you know Edgar Allan Poe was actually black?
Yeah, I'm just like, and whatever. Like Edgar Allan Poe smoked opium and married his cousin. Like he was a weird guy, but Like that's not the whole point is like I'm just trying to enjoy something and I can't even enjoy it because it's just like, oh hey guys, it's about diversity, even though it's about this family who's terrible or something. So yeah, no, I'm just trying to get into the season, not feel apathetic about all the kind of social issues that are swirling around right now. So
There's a few of them
doing good for the most part. Just it's funny. It's like all the pop culture shit, all the stuff that's occurring in society and part of civilization is kind of shitty and not worth anything. And my personal life's doing really well. So it's like oh hey sweet the shoe's on the other foot. But
so what you're saying is that when your life's shitty, everyone else's life is great. So we need to flip this dynamic somehow.
that's just my flaw. What it is my flawed perception as a contrarian. So that's like when I'm up, everybody else is down.
Everyone else is down.
That's a real warped way of looking at shit.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now. I'm actively trying to figure out because everyone's always talking about, oh, silver is a great hedge against the dollar. Like, first of all, it's not. Like, honestly, the greatest hedge against inflation is gold because silver is very, very manipulated. It's very, very stupid. But gold is the only thing that actually retains its value, which is why nations back their money based off gold, unlike the United States of America. That totally won't come back and bite us in the ass at some point in time, right? But I'm trying to think to myself, it's like, do I bother with the long-term investment of, trying to save like the currency, or is like, what would you do right now? Because you got crypto, gold, silver, they're all at high points, and they usually the smart investment advice is never buy high because you're going to buy at the highest point, then it's going to plummet, and then it could take years for it to get back to the point where you actually bought in the first place, because that's just how markets and cycles work. But then at the same time, you have to question yourself. It's like, but is this the point where it's not going to get any better than here? So it's like maybe this is the time. So there's a lot of questions and faith on the financial side of things going right now. It's a very, very interesting time.
Well, I've just gotten burned. Not that I would ever, because I'm not a big investor guy anyway, but it's like the logic of, okay, well, it's money or it keeps going up. It keeps going up. It's like, yeah, it's all right. That time passed. Like, I'm not going to make any money. And then like the last, whatever, year and a half, it's just skyrocketed. And then like, I know the logic of wouldn't be selling it. They wouldn't be selling it in commercials or whatever if it was that valuable. And it's like, okay, but then you see the fucking value is like just go through the roof. And it's like, okay.
It's worrying because like gold and silver specifically has skyrocketed just in the last 6 months alone. So back in I think it was like April or May, so we're talking about just 6 months ago, silver was floating around about $31 an ounce. Gold was somewhere around, I think, $3,300, somewhere around that time period. In 6 months, gold is now skyrocketed to $2,400 an ounce, and silver is now at $52.19, which is the highest it's been since the 2008 financial collapse. So that's usually not good signs of things to come. That the currency is rapidly inflating the way that it is right now. But yeah.
So I'm gonna be slightly irresponsible and just wish Lisa, who's in the chat, a belated happy birthday because her birthday was yesterday. She's 40 years old. She's a big girl. So welcome to old age. So.
Yep.
Cheers.
Well, to make you feel better, I turn 37 next Monday. So yeah, we're all getting old. It's over. Yep.
I turned 37 in January. So there you go.
Yep. But let's talk about some good news here. We got temporary world peace between Palestine and Israel. So isn't that something that we should be celebrating, right? Right, guys? Isn't this what you wanted? To stop the genocide, because you called it genocide. Isn't this what we all want? It doesn't seem like anyone's really too happy about this for the most part, especially all the free Palestine people. And it's probably a reason for that. We'll talk about that here in a second. Now, look, before we get too far ahead of this whole situation, is this a permanent peace treaty? No, I think Hamas is already backing out at a few elements of this whole deal. So it's like, even if they did stop bombing each other for 4 or 5 months, it would only be 4 or 5 months. This is not going to be no long-term solution whatsoever. This is basically renegotiate before the next attack. But Trump did get a deal done, and I will say this. for an authoritarian fascist Hitler person, he seems to be pretty well. He seems to be doing pretty well with creating peace among other countries, which is something that I don't think Hitler was very good with. Because Poland is still very, very angry with Hitler after all these years. But here's a little, I guess from because last week, almost a week ago, when the deal was initially announced, and things have developed ever since then.
To a Fox News alert, President Trump just announced a deal between Israel and Hamas. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin has been on this from the beginning, live from a very, very, very late Tel Aviv. Jennifer, good to see you.
Thank you, Laura. Well, incredible news here tonight that broke just within the last hour. First, we heard on Israeli television that there was a deal for the first phase of this peace plan, this agreement in Gaza to end the war and to release the hostages and to release Palestinian prisoners. Then we had the Trump Truth Social post, which really is what Israel was waiting for in order to make the formal announcement. And the Truth Social post said, "I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly." In essence, we also have heard from the foreign minister of Qatar, the prime minister, excuse me, of Qatar, who said that, who made the similar announcement that the hostages and the prisoners will be released and that Israel will be withdrawing to an agreed-upon line. Now, based on my reporting tonight, Laura, that agreed-upon withdrawal line will be about 51% of Gaza, so it will not be out of the entire Gaza Strip, because in this first phase, which is expected to start on Saturday or Sunday in terms of the 20 live hostages being released, hopefully all together from the Gaza Strip, there is no word yet on the dead hostages, the 28 hostages who are deceased, that Hamas says that they have not been able to locate all of them because Israel is controlling right now 80% of the Gaza Strip. So that withdrawal will be taking place after the release, as the hostages are released, so that they can then find the rest of the hostages. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote tonight in a post that with God's help, all of the hostages will be brought home in good time. So a sense that while this first phase, which is a very important phase in terms of hostages and prisoners and the withdrawal of the Israeli military and its immediate ceasefire, that very important phase has been negotiated with the help of Jared Kushner, as well as Steve Witkoff and the Qatari Prime Minister, the head of Turkish intelligence. We have a photograph showing the Major General Nitzan Alon, who is the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, main negotiator for hostages, shaking hands with the Prime Minister of Qatar, and also Steve Witkoff shaking hands with the head of Turkish intelligence. The smiles on their faces suggest that this deal for the first phase. Now, as we know, Laura,
So just pause here for just a second, because yeah, first of all, this is only the first step. This is like literally phase one to a much bigger deal that's supposed to be happening here. But there's a lot of moving parts here to this. So this is a very unfortunate freeze frame, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there. But so Trump has gotten Hamas and Israel to at least stop attacking each other long enough for hostages to be released on both sides. So Palestine is giving up their remaining hostages, which I believe the official number was like 20, which, considering the fact that when this whole thing started, there was 250 and only 20 came back, that pretty much tells you what's been going on over there. However, Israel's had a few Hamas soldiers over there as well, and they've given them back. So essentially, like I said, people have just stopped shooting long enough for the captured people on both sides to go back to where they need to be. And now they're going to continue negotiations moving forward there. And then here's ultimately the problem. This is why this is not going to last. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but with Trump, I'm just saying we all know, looking ahead, where this is going here. Hamas never cared about a ceasefire. Palestine, people who supported Palestine, has never cared about a ceasefire. I know it's been very, very begrudging, a lot of these people on the left, to have to admit that Trump actually did a good thing, because they live in this world where he's just Hitler. He's just a dictator, and ICE is the Gestapo and the SS. So to admit that, yeah, it's actually kind of a good thing that he got them to stop killing each other for a few days, that they can't even do that much. But here's the thing, they never actually cared about a ceasefire. Palestine, the Islamic world, Qatar, what was it? Turkey was another country I was mentioned there. They all just want the eradication of Israel. On the flip side of that, you have more of the Western group who is like, well, can't we just agree on a two-state solution? Can't we just agree to just have Palestine over here and then Israel over here? Which ultimately means that Israel needs to give up even more land than they already have, because that's the only way a two-state solution is going to work. And then at the same time, a two-state solution only works if one solution is happy with the two-state solution. So it's like you're offering something that one side doesn't want to do, because that means they have to give up more land, and then the other side doesn't even want a two-state solution because they want all the land. So you're offering essentially a solution that satisfies neither side and pretending like that anyone who doesn't agree to this is assisting in genocide. That's the whole disingenuous thing about this whole situation. But I just look at the way that this is going here, and there's been some calls here, and people, very, very foolish people, have been asking the question, oh, is this the peace treaty that the Antichrist signs? This means that Trump's the anti... No, it doesn't. Does it mean Jared Kushner is the Antichrist? Is it Kushner? Because he... No. So we can stop all of that right here. The question is that Trump has been actively trying to seek peace in a lot of these regions that have been tumultuous for many, many years. It's not just Israel, Palestine. It's obviously Russia and Ukraine. He tried his hand with North Korea, South Korea, China, and Taiwan, even though at the moment we're still kind of in a deep trade war with China at the moment too. But the big question here, and I'll shoot this one over to you, Rob, is that, Trump has gotten another peace deal done. He did not get the Nobel Peace Prize, but by the way, because apparently they don't give it to dictators. That was literally what they said. I'm not even joking. That's literally verbatim what they said. But, with the exception of a few things that obviously we would disagree with, like I said, the whole Epstein thing blew up in his face because, like I said, he was all gung-ho about releasing the list, and then all of a sudden it was no list. And it's like people remember that. People was like, no, we're not going to let you slide on that one. I know initially when this whole thing started and we started, bombing a few places in Iran, people were like, oh no, we're going to die for Israel. And then that ultimately did not happen. But there are people who's like, hey, look, I don't want you guys going and starting new wars over there. So like, don't do stuff like that. There are some things you can criticize Trump about. He is not perfect. This is not an A+ presidency. But ultimately, Trump is doing everything that he said that he was going to do. And he's in a position right now where he doesn't have to worry about re-election, at least not him. J.D. Vance, we'll talk about him on another day, but Trump doesn't have to worry about re-election. He already knows everyone hates him anyway, so he's just doing whatever it is that he can possibly do right now. And for a guy, look, we complain about politicians all the time. We talk about that, oh, I'm going to do this, and then they don't do it. Well, Trump has actually done a lot of what he said that he's going to do. So I want to get your take on essentially this deal and how Trump has been handling. So he's only been in office not even a whole full year yet of his second term. So how do you think that the Trump administration has been going so far, and what's your take on the Gaza-Israel deal here?
Yeah, I mean, I live with two very critical Trump individuals in my parents, and I love them and I respect them, and I always hear them out and what they have to say, but I just don't think they get it. I don't think a lot of people get why people voted for or support Donald Trump. I mean, it's really, look, I look at it this way, is that in a vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum. If there's no real leadership, if the best leader is literally the guy who's also the biggest entertainer and the biggest draw for crowds and for all this stuff, even if it's a spectacle, it's like, what is wrong with our world? What is wrong with our country? You know what I mean? And he's done 75 to 80% of the things he ran on. I personally don't think he talked about how high groceries were. He talked about how expensive things were. I don't think he technically promised to bring prices down. He said he was going to try. He said he was going to do what he could. Yeah. And that's, to me, that's just normal politics. That's what politicians do. And if you really expected prices to come down after inflation, after, you know what I mean, the price index and what that was under Biden, it's like, look, maybe there's some things you can do, but largely, he was definitely dealing with a stacked deck and I'm the tariffs didn't help, and that pissed off a lot of people. And I certainly don't know enough about economics to really venture an opinion there. Hopefully it works out is kind of my view on it, but I don't know. I have no idea. So having said all of that, he accomplished what Joe Biden couldn't. He brought the hostages home. Now Joe Biden got some hostages released or whatever, but Trump got the deal done. And this is in multiple phases. And already like I don't know if it's Hamas. I don't want to speak out of turn here, if it's the Gazan government or whoever it is apparently not giving up the dead, which was part of the agreement as well.
So just real quick, and I'll let you finish there. It's like there's so many moving parts here because from a Western perspective, and we are in the Western perspective of this because we're not directly tied to either Israel or the Islamic world. But from the Western perspective, everyone thinks that Palestine is just, this innocent victim that's just a victim of genocide, and apparently all the bombs are just killing kids and nobody else. It's like they have child-seeking missiles over there in Israel. But if you heard the report that she was talking about here, it's like they're negotiating not just with Hamas in Palestine or the Gaza, they're negotiating with Turkey, they're negotiating with Qatar, they're negotiating with the UAE, and it's like, well, hold on a second, how are all these other groups in the middle of this whole, and Iran was another country too, like, why are they all involved in here? And you realize that a lot of these Middle Eastern giants are funding the war from the Hamas side. That's why there's negotiations with Qatar. They're the ones who are funding Hamas. Iran was funding Hamas. Turkey is another country that openly calling for the eradication of Israel. Syria is going to be one to definitely keep an eye on over the course of the next calendar year. I'm just throwing that out there as well. So I think the way that the Western views this, and we talked about this a couple times on the show, there's a lot of ignorant people out there who have no grasp of what's actually happening. They just see, Israel, white people, they're bad, and then, poor brown Palestinian kids, and then that's their only concept of what's actually happening here. Excuse me, I think it was someone, Leslie Tarkin, that mentioned it here too. It's like looking at the Middle East, is there any reason why the Lord would have to rule with an iron rod? I'm just going to be blunt when I say this here, and it's probably going to upset a few people, but it's reality when it comes to this. These people have literally been fighting all the way since the days of Isaac and Ishmael. It's not going to stop anytime soon. There may be a simmer, and it feels like we're at a simmer point, but something is going to happen in the coming weeks or in the coming months, and we're going to be right back in the same situation that we were before. And here's the reality of the situation. When you talk about a time of peace and a time of, people just stop fighting and live kumbaya and all that stuff, the reality is that a lot of people are going to have to die before we get to that point. And you were talking about, Leslie, ruling with an iron rod. The only reason why you get that millennial reign that is mentioned in the Bible is because a lot of the nations that we're talking about right now, to nations like Turkey, nations like Iran and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, another one too, they in that time period will no longer exist, because in that time period God takes over the full land that he promised the Jews that they've never received in the first place. And there's a lot of Islamic countries in the middle of that, which I believe is not a coincidence that when you look around Israel, there's nothing but Islamic rule all around them. And there's not a coincidence that essentially nearly everyone, with the exception of maybe like Jordan, Saudi Arabia in a diplomatic standpoint, but a lot of the other ones around them, they all want Israel dead. It's not a coincidence that all this is happening here. So I would say this. I give Trump all the credit for the way that he's able to, make deals diplomatically, especially working with other nations. That's been one of his biggest strengths in both of his runs as president. And you can say that his star power and his celebrity definitely helps that, because, let's be honest, there are still nations out there that are marks for Donald Trump because they still remember the celebrity Donald Trump, right? And that's kind of happened in a few states and cities here. So his approach of being able to at least bring both sides to the table and try to agree to a deal is something that no one ever really truly talks about. It's honestly one of the best things about his presidency that he's able to do this. Now, how is this going to hold? I know Trump wants to take a lot of credit about this. I would caution him not to do so, especially in a situation as volatile as this, because let's be honest here. Let's say 2 weeks pass and Hamas launches another attack against Israel, and we're right back in the same situation we were a couple weeks ago. Then all of a sudden, everyone who was saying that, Trump's created world peace, they're going to slam him and they're going to say like, oh, where's Trump now that the peace failed? It's like, you got to understand how volatile this situation is, and the only way you can do that is to truly understand what is happening here, which is why I say this is a temporary win, but I don't expect this to last long term. And like I said, guys, I get it. A lot of you people out there hate Trump because of ICE. And ICE is the hill that you guys have decided that you want to die on right now because people are being deported back to the country that they should have been deported back to 20, 30 years ago. And it makes you very, very upset. I made a post about this, Rob, over the weekend. All these people fighting in Chicago because of ICE. It's like, you guys specifically in Chicago for the last 20 years have allowed Chicago to become a war zone to the point where it's been unironically nicknamed Chirac by people who live in Chicago. You have 110,000 gang members in Chicago right now. The Mexican drug cartels have operated in Chicago effortlessly for about 3 decades now. And you've let all this stuff happen in your city. And when anyone tries to point it out, you say, oh, that's a Fox News talking point. We don't want to talk about it. Now, all of a sudden, you guys want to get upset and get mad because ICE is over there trying to clean up your city because, oh, the National Guard is coming in. And now we're going to draw a line. It's like, really? This is like, it's just showing you that these people are going to be against Trump no matter what he does. There is no reasoning with these people at this point. It's just the way that it is. But
the temperature around the country, and we haven't even talked about the people following ICE agents or ramming their vehicles and then trying to have edited videos where you just see the ICE officers reacting to it, and it's like, okay, look, listen, there's nobody that hates more of Gestapo police bullshit than I do. That if you're an activist and you're protesting legally, they don't have any right to do shit to you. Now they can detain you. They shouldn't legally. They literally shouldn't.
Yeah.
But since 9/11, you'd be surprised at what the law is in terms of like what they're allowed to do. Now they eventually have to let you go because you haven't committed a crime or whatever. I'm against that shit. However, what's going on right now where you're literally attacking federal law enforcement officers, dude, do you know what they used to do? Regular cops used to do to people in the 70s, in the late 60s when they were having these ridiculous protests. The protests weren't ridiculous, but like how
yes, they were. No, I'm just kidding.
What I'm saying, the violence, in terms of what the event became in terms of violence and awful shit, they were ridiculous. Protest all you want, that's fine, but it's like, this is something different. Do you know how lucky you are that these guys aren't rifle butting you in the face? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and they would be within their rights to do so. Like, federal officers have an incredible leeway. If you think regular cops are bad, a federal law enforcement officer has a massive leeway if he feels threatened. So why would you ever want to fuck with these people? It's like you're asking for a harsher crackdown. And this No Kings protest, when he's the most popular he's been, when Donald Trump's the most popular he's been, arguably because of this Middle East peace deal, regardless of how long that actually lasts, it's like half the country, or a little less than half the country, is, I don't know if they're disconnected from reality. It's like the people that are being rounded up, whether they're teachers or grandmothers or whatever, are here illegally. If they were here legally, they would have no reason to be taking them. And so it's like, you can disagree with that, change the law. If you hate what's happening right now, change what the law is. And again, I'm not saying that I want that or whatever, but I'm saying that's what we do in this country. We talk to our politicians, our legislators, the people that represent us, and say, I want this to be different. I want this to change. I want you to work on the legal framework to make that happen. And hopefully over time and enough pressure, something actually changes in this country. I know, not really, but it's like, you know what I mean? And so it's like, if that's what you want to do that, but don't say to the government, don't follow the law. The government will always use whatever law is on the books to do whatever they want to anyway, but
and here's the other thing too, that, we're still trying to drum up this sympathy chain with, all these people who are getting deported and whatnot. And we've been saying this for a while. It's like, look, you guys have had decades to go through the legal process to become a citizen, and you have not done it. you can't just run across the border and be like, well, I've been here for a while now, so you can't send me back. That's not how the law works. It's never been how the law works, right? And they're trying to find whatever little story that they can to distract from the fact that they're ultimately, the reason why they're so upset is because people who should not have been here for so long are finally getting sent back to where they came from. And this was a major problem with Biden because it wasn't even just people from Mexico, like it's been the talking point for the last 10 years. We've had people from, like I said, the Middle East and China just running out of here. Now, all of a sudden, if you look at portions of the world, you got places like Dearborn, Michigan, and Texas and North Carolina where these little Muslim towns are just suddenly taken over overnight. No one knows where they've all come from, but they got strength in numbers, and now they're talking about bringing Sharia law here to the United States. How did this happen, right? And no one's going to sit here and play this emotional game of, oh my God, think of the children. It's like after everything you guys did during the COVID lockdowns against actual citizens in the United, mind you, and after everything else that has happened here in the country over the last couple of years, this whole crying sympathy game, no one's buying it anymore. And this is why so many people are like, no, we're done playing this game. They have to go back. I'm sorry that upholding the law, the way that it's been written since the founding of our country, actually bothers you to this degree. But no one's going to shed a tear because, oh, grandma who's been here for 30 years is now going back to Venezuela. It's like, oh, this is a horrible tragedy. No, it's not. It's not. A tragedy is you had 30 years when you were here to go through the legal process to become an actual citizen if it meant that much to you and you chose not to do so. Just because you overstayed your visa for 15 years does not mean that we're obligatory allowed to let you stay. Especially in a point where, like I said, people are complaining about, oh my God, everything's so expensive. The resources are declining. It's like, well, then what do you think is causing that? Not saying it's the sole cause, but you think that this is helping the situation that you're actively complaining about or making it significantly worse. At some point, you're going to have to realize you can't have two conflicting viewpoints at the same time and realize that either you're going to be pro-America or you're not. And let's be honest here. A lot of people who are complaining about this are not pro-America. And I said this last week, like I said, you can get angry about me if you want to. At some point, you just have to realize that the people who are anti-ICE are simply just anti-police. And that's the only sole reason why they're against what's happening here right now. They're anti-police and they're anti-authority. That's all it really just comes down to. And then, of course, Rick joins us right at that moment.
I mean, personally, I think the Department of Homeland Security shouldn't exist. They were literally created after 9/11. And I mean, look at the amount of power they have, and that extends to TSA and ICE. And I'm not saying ICE shouldn't exist at all, but like they've got a lot of fucking, and it's even worse now since the budget got passed or since they gave them all that money. It's like it's even more than it was under the Bush administration and after 9/11. So look, I hope it's for a really good thing. I hope it gets rid of the people that are here legally or whatever. But it's like, you know, if it fixes a problem that honestly the Biden administration caused, which by the way, really odd since, you know, Barack Obama has that quote from 2005 about like, yeah, you don't get to skip the line. You know, you don't get to jump ahead of the people who came here because guess what? Democrats couldn't run like that in 2008 and be like, oh yeah, we're just going to give amnesty to people. It was like, no, you can't do that because people won't vote for you. It was the same reason for gay marriage.
It was the time period
against gay marriage. Anyways.
Yeah. It was the time period where we were still more culturally moderate as a nation. So all these uber progressive policies and viewpoints that have taken over our society in 2025, none of that shit would have flown 20 years ago. Just 20 years ago, where you can argue we were far more liberal in a sense of where we were back in like the 80s and the 60s and whatnot. But even still then, yeah, you couldn't run on gay marriage in 2005 and be taken seriously. But that just shows you how far we've shoved the window to the left in all these years and why the situation that we're in right now. So,
and my question real quick is like with the whole Hamas thing, Gaza and Israel thing, it's like, what leverage do you have? Like, you're literally like, you're at war with a much more powerful opponent and you may be getting like funding through other nations or whatever, but it's like, you're not like, you don't have any leg to stand on here. Literally, like you have to take what you can get out of this deal, this peace plan, and just be grateful that you're not going to be destroyed. And I say that just based on history, where it's like you got to get out before they literally wipe you off the face of the earth and there's nothing left of you. So like,
Well, this is the problem, and this is the elephant in the room that no one wants to properly address. We're still pretending like the problem with the Palestinians is that, oh, they just want to be left alone. They just want their land. No, they want to kill the Jews, and they're not going to stop until they killed all the Jews by their own admission. Like, they will tell you this if you ask them. If you go to the Gaza announcement, they will tell you this. It's only the West that's trying to pretend like that's not their intention. So if you're wondering why they didn't just give up a long time ago, there's a reason why. Because what the West is telling you their objective is not their true objective. And that's why we're still doing this after so many years. Hey, Rick.
Hello.
are you sick?
I'm doing well. I'm just
Are you
or
eating
maybe a little.
Whataburger?
No, I wish. I can't afford it with this economy because of the new Hitler. So, and besides, I have to be constantly on the run, moving from safe house to safe house because ICE is literally just running all over El Paso. I'm just ducking every day, hiding under my desk every time they come around. So I live in constant terror. But fortunately, in a couple of years, Pete Buttigieg will be president and we'll be fine and everything will be wonderful again.
Whoa. Well, with that said, let's go over to a little bit of sports here. Ryan Clark is begging to get fired and starting to wonder why he hasn't already been fired up to this point. So Ryan Clark, if you recall, like a year or two ago, his contract was up with ESPN. I think they had let it expire for like a brief period of time, like 3 weeks, but then they eventually brought him back and signed it to a new deal. And everyone was like, why would you do that? Like, well, why would you bring this guy back? And in the course of, not even talking about a full calendar year, I think he's publicly apologized no less than 6 times in 2025 so far, including 3 times in the last 3 months. So what did he have to apologize for this time around? Well, after the Chiefs and Jaguars game, where the Jaguars had an incredible comeback against the Kansas City Chiefs and beat them last week, Ryan Clark took it upon himself to take the post Monday Night Football coverage to talk about a kid named Karen Lacey. Now, if you guys haven't heard this story, Karen Lacey was involved in a fatal car accident which killed another guy, and it was stricken with the guilt of what he had done to the point where he ended up taking his own life, right? It's a tragic story one way or another because not only did somebody else die, but he took his own life. It was a very, very bad story. Ryan Clark decided that he was going to take this time frame to position or swing the story in a direction where the police lied about it, so that to make them at fault for what happened with Lacey. This is what he said after the Monday Night Football game. Now, of course, you're watching this to get coverage of the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Then this is what he decided to do on ESPN.
Yes, please. Yes.
Second,
Oh, I
please.
beg your pardon. I did want to clear space for this.
1 second,
This
please.
is important.
Yes, guys, Kyron Lacey was supposed to be in the NFL. Kyron Lacey was accused of something and being investigated for something that he didn't do, and he died having to live with the guilt and the consequences of a guilty man knowing he was innocent. It recently was discovered that he was 72 yards away from the crash, that police and state policemen tried to coerce and doctor and use ways to manipulate statements that put this young man behind bars. They changed his joy, they changed his life, and eventually he took his own life. This was supposed to be a career, but at least he was supposed to be here. At some point throughout his career, I would expect to have said his name. So I'm gonna say his name tonight.
Amen.
Kyron Lacey was innocent. Kyron Lacey should be here with us. Nothing will ever repair or replace the pain that his parents have to feel and his loved ones have to feel. But we could say his name. There were so many stations that ran the fact that he was being investigated. So I wanted to make sure here with Scott, we could say that he was an innocent man and at least know that he has that as he rests.
You and I talked about this earlier tonight, and I'll just share with them what I share with you. I can't recall ever seeing something that made me react viscerally to the point that I felt like my hands were trembling to think that there's video that shows that this is not at all what happened. And that young man took his life. And so I will not say any more. It's your thoughts here. I just wanted to echo.
Thank you very much.
No, and my apologies for forgetting that because this is a more important thing than we're talking about tonight.
Well, here's the problem. Everything that Ryan Clark said was total bullshit. And not only was it was verifiably bullshit, because the police department, immediately after he made that declaration, released a video of the Laci incident from the perspective of the convenience store that shows that not only was he not innocent, but he was directly responsible for the crash that cost another person his life. Now, it's a 6-minute video. We won't play the whole thing, but we'll just play the relevant parts here. This is the vehicle that illegally charges. Not only that, he was recklessly speeding on top of all that as well. But here's the evidence that the police department shows that no, actually Laci was in fact at fault for this entire situation. Oh, yeah, there we go. So if you can see what happened is it happens pretty quickly, but Laci, who's driving the green vehicle, I guess was not only speeding recklessly, but didn't want to essentially wait behind the cars that were driving the normal speed limit. So he swerves into oncoming traffic on the wrong side of the street. And then as he tries to regain control of his vehicle, crashes into another man, kills him. I think maybe a couple people may have died in this whole situation. So this video alone shows that actually no, Laci was directly responsible for the crash that happened. And then you hear the impact off screen.
According to the video timestamp, at 12:03 p.m. and 54 seconds, a portion of the crash can be seen as it occurs. Moments before the crash, the gold pickup truck abruptly veers out of the northbound lane into a business, while the green Charger is approaching in the same lane. Immediately after the crash occurred, the green Charger was observed on surveillance video and by witnesses traveling through the crash scene and continues north on LA 20, failing to stop. The briefing will now transition to the troopers' response and investigation.
So again, the video was released showing that everything that Ryan Clark said was nonsense. So this is where it gets interesting. As a result of the new footage that got released here, Pat McAfee, Scott Van Pelt, and Ryan Laci, all three had to do separate announcements, separate statements on air on ESPN after this video was released, and basically an attempt to avoid a massive lawsuit to Disney, because Ryan went on, like I said, ESPN on a Monday Night Football, Disney-owned platform, lied to a national television audience, slandered the police officers. It's a slam dunk defamation lawsuit. So this is what Ryan had to say after the fact to basically protect himself and the network from a major lawsuit.
Yeah. So I've never really had much trouble expressing anything. This has been more difficult because I know that people are hurting, right? 2 lives have been lost. Herman Hall, a man who spent his life in service of other, and Kyron Laci. He's just a young man who I wish I could tell how much he had to live for. My heart absolutely breaks for both of them, their families, and their loved ones. On Monday night's Sports Center, I addressed the horrific car crash that took Mr. Hall's life, and also the subsequent tragic events that led to the death of Kyron Laci. In full transparency, y'all, I knew Kyron Laci personally, but nothing matters to me.
That doesn't give you an excuse for slander and libel, so that honestly is completely irrelevant to the point.
More than the truth. Always strive to do my best to mix authenticity with the most complete and up-to-date information available. I failed to do that on Monday night based on the subsequent evidence that has been released by the Louisiana State Police Department. I set the highest standards of fairness and, most importantly, righteousness in my work. I didn't meet that standard.
By the way, this is the 3rd apology he's made in the last 3 months. We have the other 2.
But since I've spoken to Kyron's representation at length, and I've also reached out to a representative at the state police office just to have a conversation. They informed me this morning that because it's ongoing litigation, they actually can't divulge anything else. It's always important to me that I gather all factual and important information to provide the complete story. That's a responsibility.
And you didn't do that.
That I do not take lightly. And when discussed in real time on Monday evening, I failed to do so. And for that, I apologize.
Yeah, so this was a big thing on ESPN. It went under the radar. But like I said, even Pat McAfee had to apologize because thanks to guys like, Ryan Clark, he tried to make a comment on this whole situation and it blew up in his face. This was his apology after the fact.
We also tried to cover news that we feel is good for people to learn, potentially provide a little bit more context. On Monday, we learned of a video that was made publicly available by Kyron Lacey's lawyer. In it, what we thought showed more context to the accident that inevitably led to the tragic loss of 2 lives, with Herman Hall, who dies in a car accident, and then Kyron Lacey, who later ends up killing himself because of the fallout of everything in which he was accused. We thought we had more context. Now more video has been made publicly available, and it shows even more context where Kyron Lacey is driving on the wrong side of the road and could have very easily made the case that he caused the car to swerve and caused the tragic accident. We apologize for adding any more heat and will continue to stay on top of the news breakings in this story because obviously it's tragically sad and involves an athlete's legacy. We'll see you in the next hour.
You know how much easier sports talk would be if they just stuck with fucking sports? Do you know how much easier this would be if you just shut up and talk about the games and stop trying to bring this Black Lives Matter nonsense into every sports conversation? But apparently they just can't do that anymore. So, as I said, this is the third apology that Ryan has had to make in the last 3 months. Going back here, he had to apologize last month over a conversation he had on air with, what was the guy's name here? It's Preeta Schroeder, who just came over from Fox Sports. They were talking about some NFL game, and then Ryan Clark on air basically dismissed him as, well, you're not a real player, so you don't really understand what happens, on the field, unlike me, right? Even though this guy has literally like 30, 40 years of experience. So he didn't take very kindly to that. So in the middle of live tweeting the Monday night game, he just so happens to release this recorded tweet saying that I had an interaction with my colleague, both on and off the air, that I regret. I've apologized to Peter and taken accountability with ESPN leadership. I value working with Peter and look forward this season. My focus will remain on professionalism, teamwork, and being a teammate moving forward. Again, this is on the heels of what he just said, like literally last week on here. He also had to apologize publicly for his remarks about RG3. RG3, who criticized Angel Reese. Ryan Clark decided to make it personal with RG3 and basically said that you can't talk about black issues because you have a white wife. This is his apology video then.
Greta Griffin. Let me say this before getting into reasoning, before getting into thought process. She should not have been brought up in me trying to make a point about how having black women close to you and the things that you learn from them can help you in the way that you approach and speak to and about them. She didn't need to be the illustration of that. I could speak positively about what they are without making the insinuation that it's something that non-black women don't do well.
Again, you attacked his wife because he criticized Angel Reese in a completely unrelated manner, had to do a public apology about that. And this isn't the first time he's done this. Like, I'm not even joking here. If you go to Twitter and you just search Ryan Clark apologies, you will find apologies from like 2 years ago where it's just the same thing over and over again. So here's the pattern. Ryan Clark goes on air. He says something completely wrong and stupid. He gets in trouble for it. And then he has to do a bullshit apology where he has to be like, oh, sorry I said that, guys. I'll be more professional next time. And then he does the exact same thing the very next month. So the question here now is like, how does Ryan Clark still have a job at ESPN? Because legitimately at this point, he is a lawsuit risk. Because he lies all the time, he slanders people all the time, he libels people all the time. How do you keep him on your roster of your Disney, of your ESPN, where everything that he says is a potential lawsuit to the point where he has to go out and publicly make statements to denounce what he said the day prior? How do you do that? Rob, I'll start with you. What would you take on Ryan Clark, the analyst?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Clark was a slightly above average safety. And who is not even best remembered at his position with the team he's best remembered for. And that's fine, but that's, Troy Polamalu. So, but that's okay. Like, Ryan Clark was, again, a good player. So it's not even like, oh, he shouldn't even be in. It's fine. Be in broadcasting. I don't care. I personally think that argument is bullshit, that you can't be a good sports commentator or analyst if you haven't played. It's such nonsense. I mean, you hear that all the time. I mean, I hear that all the time with just like movie criticism. It's like people are like, "Oh, you direct a movie." That's not the job. The job is to critically analyze the material and say whether it works or it doesn't based on these elements. Anyway, it's just so whatever. That's fine. Ryan Clark though has kind of taken opportunities to put the spotlight on himself, trying to make himself basically a Stephen A. Smith type. And like ESPN has been driving this kind of content for probably 20 years now. But he's not very good at it, and he has foot and mouth disease. And you can't do that when you're really trying to take a big swing and you absolutely whiff. It's like, maybe shut up for a while. Maybe just don't, maybe just stop talking for a while, to quote Anchorman. You know what I mean? When you've had that, when you've had the issue with RG3, it's time to be like, hey, talk about sports, stick to the primary function of your job, maybe stop trying to be a social activist all the time. And these people, and I'm not super fond of the term, but they're race hucksters. They're people who take issues of race to divide people and say, this is because of systemic racism that these problems Oh, really? Is it systemic racism that a young black athlete was driving recklessly in by the way, a car that is not super maneuverable? Like
No.
it's a fast car. Like it's in a straight line. If you need to get around something real quick, you might have some trouble. And so, and look, I'm a spirited driver. Okay. I love driving fast, but I understand the risks. And guess what? I don't put other people at danger because I'm not a fucking idiot. So, and guess what? If I get into an accident, I fully know I'm responsible because I was driving faster than I should have been. Luckily, that hasn't happened. So, but and whatever, he's a young kid, shit happens, whatever. But it sucks that he felt that he had to take his own life. But I think a lot of people probably look at that as someone dodging responsibility. Even if it's awful that he lost his life and all that, they also look at it like, okay, but you also weren't held accountable for the life that you ended up taking or caused to end. So, I mean, there's all that stuff too. But yeah, Ryan Clark is a fucking idiot. He's been a known commodity for a while now. And he basically tried to make a name for himself by using the death of a young black man, and it completely backfired on him.
Yep. To me, I just question how he still has a job at this point. And at some point, you have to legitimately ask, is he just being used as an agent of chaos over at Disney? Because it seems like anyone else who has done what he has done up to this point would have been fired a long, long time ago. He would have, the leash that person would have had would have been pulled a long time ago. Not only that, like I said, ESPN was essentially done with him, like for at least a period of a few weeks. They could have just completely washed their hands and say, hey, sorry, we didn't re-sign you. Things happen in business, but they brought him back. And now he's more of a menace than he was ever before. It just doesn't make any logical sense unless there's something else going on there. Rick, what's your take on Ryan Clark? There's so many things I wish I can't wait for the show to go to Rumble.
Well, first, I don't know who this man is, and I've never heard of Kyron Lacey until right now. First, I feel terrible that someone has committed suicide. And I feel worse that there was an innocent man who lost his life because of another person's irresponsible behavior. When it comes to Ryan Clark, I presume the reason that he has kept his job is because if he is terminated, it would be racist and only racist. That's the only reason. There's no other reasons why any person would be fired for saying all sorts of things. I will think about what was it last week or a couple weeks ago when Mark Sanchez was stabbed, and people just assumed that it was some sort of random act. It was a random act, and then we find out that hey, I think he was responsible by trying to beat up this old man in a state of intoxication. So you need to wait until all the evidence is in before you decide. Oh, it's it's racism or it's an attack on this young man or anything. You could say, "Hey, I feel bad that this young man, Kyron Lacey, killed himself. It's terrible. My condolences to his family and my condolences to the person in the on the automobile accident that died." But let's just wait for the evidence. Let's just find out. Let the investigation go forth. Instead, that's not what Ryan Clark did. He decided to say, "Oh, he was basically innocent, and he was driven to it by the press or whatever." That's not responsible. I'm sorry. And if he's done this repeatedly, then he's never going. He hasn't gotten what do you call it? He has not faced the consequences of his actions at ESPN and at Disney. They just let him keep going and going and going. So of course he's not going to stop because no one stops him. That's really what I just need to.
The police of a cover-up. He literally lied based on speculation.
And that's what you should not do. You don't have the evidence. You're muted, Jacob. You don't have the evidence. You're just saying things. And again, because you are totally convinced that the police are all conspiring against everyone. We don't know that. We have the video of the accident. We have the testimony of other witnesses. You need to investigate this. You can't just assume, oh, this person is innocent. Oh, this person is guilty. That's what investigations do. Don't speak unless you know 100% and you have the evidence in front of you. Speculating about conspiracies, cover-ups, all that's just going to get you into trouble. If he's not, I don't want to say terminated, but if he's not at least suspended, if he does this another time, then Disney and ESPN just don't care.
He's already done it 5 times this year. 5.
Then it's their fault. It's the higher ups. They just let him get away with it, and of course he's going to keep doing it. He's going to retract. That seems an interesting pattern. Say something outlandish, and then, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Say something outlandish. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. How long are they going to keep doing this? It's up to them. It's up to them.
Literally until someone fires them, and then when that does happen, they can claim racial discrimination. That's the playbook.
Maybe that's why they haven't fired him. Maybe they're just afraid that someone will believe this story. It's because I'm black.
And that's what makes it even worse, because if that's legitimately the issue, it's like, again, you guys had him off the leash. Like, you could have just been like, oh, sorry, we're not going to resigning you. Don't have to deal with that problem anymore. But you brought him back knowing that he was always going to use that card whenever accountability came at the table. So it's like, in all instances, Disney literally brought this on themselves.
Well, what's funny to me about all of this is, like, if you just kept all the old, and doesn't even have to be all the old white guys, just most of them were white, but you just keep all the old guys. Tom Jackson, Chris Berman, Mark Schlereth, like Trey Wingo, Scott Van Pelt, and just talk sports. And guess what? I'm pretty sure your ratings would go up. I'm pretty sure more people would sign up for ESPN. But you have to
Is Sean Salisbury still around?
Robert, you cannot do that. They have a platform, confounded, and they need to use their platform.
When ESPN had Sunday Night Football, they had this 3-man team. It was It was Joe Theismann, Paul McGuire, and I can't remember the guy's name Mike Patrick was his name. Mike Patrick. He died like a year and a half ago. That was a fantastic broadcast team, and it rivaled. I would argue it rivaled the Sunday Night Baseball team that they had with Joe Morgan and John, what's his face, that does the Giants play-by-play. But like ESPN used to do this so well, and they've completely abandoned it for what? Social relevancy, and among who? People that weren't watching it in the first place. It makes absolutely no sense. It's like, we have to adapt with the times. It's like, no, if you would have stayed the same, if you literally would have focused on sports and not racial division, you wouldn't be in this position. I know this is about Ryan Clark, but it's a larger issue at ESPN, I think.
but you needed them to speak out against racism and against oppression. And you needed them because that's what they were there for. They weren't there to analyze the games, Rob. They were
But
there to
you know what was funny
enlighten
about that?
you.
They had a show on Sunday mornings called The Sports Reporters. And, whatever. It was like 5 from the Washington Post or the New York Times or whatever. And they would talk about the various issues. And they would each get a little like 5-minute thing at the end of the show to say what they wanted to say. Sometimes it was political. Sometimes they tied in the social and the political with sports. Dave Zirin, a flaming liberal, like leftist, if I ever have run into one, all about how proud, John Carlos was at the Olympics and all that stuff, right? The fist of power and all that. Like, you had all kinds of perspectives. You had black writers and writers from Boston Irish neighborhoods, and you had writers from all over the country, the Kansas City and Denver, giving their perspectives on sports being larger than that venue, and it being an interesting thing because they were writers. They could communicate. We don't have any of that anymore. And so even back then, even when it was sports, they still tried to do clever things like that dwarf anything ESPN has put out in the last decade. So,
like I said, going back to the times like we mentioned before, around the horn and pardon the interruption, you had legitimate journalists, sports journalists, people who covered sports at a time period where all you were supposed to cover was sports. Over the course of 20 years, we just let a bunch of activists in, and that's essentially where we're in this situation right now. But something that Rick was mentioning there as well, and this is something I've noticed with a lot of people on the left doesn't care about getting all the facts before they make a statement. They just don't, because we've essentially created a world where there's no repercussions for them to do stuff like this. Like I said, this is now Ryan Clark's 5th apology. He only has been allowed to apologize 5 times because he keeps getting away with it. So when you keep getting away with it, there's no incentive to tell the truth. And you've seen a lot of people on the left get burned with stories like this because they want to be the first ones out there to get the first hot take, no matter whether it's true or not, because they know that, for example, let's say that, a mass shooting happens, right? And the first thing is, oh, it's the guns. We need to go with the guns. It's the guns, the guns, the guns. And then you find out that the person has a background that is unfavorable to the left. Do they apologize? No, they just pretend like the story didn't happen, and then they go on to the next outrage to go to. And this is why we're coming up with this time and time again. There's been a number of stories where I was like, let's wait a couple of days on this one to see what all the facts are, because something about this doesn't smell right. But if there's an emotional angle they can drive out of it, like, oh my god, this gay couple got bashed for being gay, it's like, is that really what happened? Or maybe we should wait a couple of days to see what everyone else is saying, because apparently the neighbors of this person is saying that this person was a complete asshole who was bringing out a lot of these things that were going on here. Maybe, I don't know, just wait to see, and then when we have the facts and you know it for certain, then go on your soapbox and then go on your large rants. But they don't do that. They just go for the immediate emotional reaction, and it burns them time and time again. But the reason they keep doing it is because there's no repercussions for them when they do this.
Well, it's a bit like saying that the person that assassinated Charlie Kirk was this right-wing MAGA guy, right? It's only them. And we had this, and we have this with that kid that was apparently smirking at the Native American protester with a MAGA hat, and then we find out that no, it wasn't, that he was just taunting him, but it was kind of the other way around. Again,
and then they had to pay him out.
Yes, again and again and again. People have this very curious habit of rushing to judgment and saying, oh, well, we know what we saw. It's absolutely true. And as the song says, it ain't necessarily so. You have to wait. That's why you have investigations. That's why you have trials. And the fact that people don't want to wait and just want to say, oh, well, I know. And I think it's because they're speaking their truth. Confound it. It's their truth. This was Ryan Clark's truth, that it was thoroughly, racially motivated, I guess. And, the police were erupt. That's his truth. And who are you to question his truth? Who are you to question his platform? That's what I keep wondering. Because again, there's someone who's completely outside of sports. But this is more than sports, because this has happened in other venues, and other fields, where people just rush to judgment, decide, oh, this person's guilty or this person's innocent. There's, just let the investigation go on. That's all that we asked for. And you didn't need to have a hot take right away.
Yeah. And it happens time and time again. But like I said, until there's actual accountability, it won't happen. And funny thing enough, going back to the Charlie Kirk situation here, is that, you know, when the left finally started getting held accountable for what they were saying and people started losing their jobs, they absolutely had a meltdown. They absolutely was like, oh, I thought you guys were against cancel culture, because that was the first time I was like, oh, wait a second, there's actually accountability for the things that I say, because I'm usually used to this going in one direction. And this is why. This is exactly why this happens. What was it? Dan Rather? Yeah, Godfather. He's not the only one. Let's be honest. Even the people who we think of as respectable journalists, they've all lied their ass off to get where they are here too. I mean, he's not the only one. He's one of the biggest ones who's gotten caught, but there's been a few other ones who got caught being completely full of it as well. But
if you guys ever get the chance, you should watch that Robert Redford movie where I think he plays Dan Rather. Okay, that's what it's called. Yeah, I watched it a couple months ago. I just couldn't remember what it was called. It glorifies the plagiarism and lying that got Dan Rather fired, as if it was some heroic thing, because they basically lied about Bush's like military service records, and it was like, you just trusted the source that wasn't legitimate and ran with it because you wanted it to be true.
You wanted it to be true.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite scene is when Kate Blanchett just goes and says, why don't you ask what you really want to? Am I, or have I ever been, a liberal? She's clearly drawing parallels between McCarthy and the questioning at, was it Black Rock or whatever they want to call the Black Tower, whatever they call CBS. Right. So she was trying to draw the parallel, and I don't think it was there. But it's very interesting that the movie's called Truth, and it's not based on any truth.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, so speaking of not based on truth, let's talk about Trevor Noah here, because Trevor Noah, apparently he does stand-up comedy. Did anyone know that he's a stand-up comedian? Because I didn't. But apparently he does stand-up comedy, and he talked about the death of Charlie Kirk. And like I said, at this point is not surprising, because we've seen many leftists celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, many people justifying his death. So that's not the surprising part in this whole situation, is that not only does he essentially laugh at it, he also lies to justify it, which is what a lot of people have been doing. And so this is Trevor Noah. I'll pop this up here. There we go. It says that he found it funny that Charlie Kirk was shot while defending guns, because, like I said, anytime someone gets shot, it's immediately a gun issue with the left. Like, they don't see this as one of their own killing someone who they don't like, because they were too busy celebrating and tap dancing in the street when it happened. But yeah, former host of the Daily Show, which I got to be just completely honest with you guys, the Daily Show is probably one of the worst things that has happened to American society in the last 20 to 25 years. It's like everything that show and that culture has brought upon our country has had just net negative all across the board, and Trevor Noah is a great example of this. But yeah, he joked about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, saying that there's something funny about Kirk being murdered due to his stance on the Second Amendment, and then say he was fatally shot while defending guns. So comedians are shitting themselves and said, don't say about Charlie Kirk. There wasn't anything to say about him. So I wasn't going to talk about Charlie Kirk, but there's something funny about it. It's like, oh, you've tested me, Noah said. He says that, I mean, there's there's nothing funny about it. It's like, you say that there's nothing funny about it because as a comedian, there's certain something funny about it. He went on to say that the guy was shot while defending guns. No, he wasn't. That's completely false. Now, this is where we talk about the depravity and the evilness of the left. Because Charlie Kirk defended the Second Amendment, which liberals do not support and do not like, because, I mean, if you're living in a country full of people who want you dead, why would you ever support disarming yourself being in that country? That's besides the point. But because he was shot, they view it as justified. Why? Because, well, he supported the Second Amendment of the United States. This is why you can miss me with all your complaining about ICE and all the ICE raids and stuff like that. Like, you're literally thinking that it's funny that people are getting killed because they're standing for the actual constitution of this country. So again, you can miss me with all the ICE stuff. I'm not falling for it. Back to the statement here. You have to admit that it's a credulous, funny thing that happened. Is that here you are on stage and you're telling people why you should have guns. Pow, he says. It says it's pretty amazing that the American response to the guy getting shot was to limit the speech instead of limiting the thing that ended his life, which he got a round of applause for. So of course, what he's saying here, what he's applying to is that, oh, oh, it sucks that Jimmy Kimmel was silenced for his speech in the reaction to Charlie Kirk getting killed by guns. Absolutely nothing that he says here is true whatsoever. We've all talked about the Kimmel situation. He was literally pulled off the air for 3 days, and he's already back on. He's been doing his same shtick that he's been doing, outright lying, by the way, ever since it happened. But because the left has to lie and pretend like they actually have the moral high ground on these issues, the second that Charlie Kirk got murdered for his speech because he was saying things that bothered them, they had to run around and pretend like, oh, let's make Jimmy Kimmel the free speech martyr, as we pretend like somehow we're actually standing on the Constitution, while apparently they're pretending to stand on the First Amendment while laughing at a guy for standing at the Second Amendment. Make that make sense. You can't, right? So obviously this goes all the way back to the whole Kirk situation. It was about a month ago where he was killed at Utah University. I think the last question that he was asked was something about trans rights or something like that right before he was shot and murdered, by the way. But look, let's be completely honest here. The leftists have been telling you for ever since this happened that they're glad that he's dead. They're happy that he's dead. They either celebrate it or they find ways to justify it in their own mind, which honestly, you might as well just come out and say that you're happy that he's dead instead of trying to pretend like you have some kind of moral high ground here. So nothing that Trevor Noah is saying here is surprising. He is mirroring the moral depravity of the left wing, and this is why everything is divided as it is right now. I think there was a report that came out not too long ago saying that support for gun control is at its lowest that it's been in like 40 years. It was because, yeah, you know why? As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, when the realization set in that there's a good 35-40% of the people in this country who want you dead, and if someone were to kill you for your opinions, they would celebrate it in the streets. Yeah, you actually don't want to disarm yourself when you're surrounded amongst those people. So probably now more than ever, people are like, no, actually, I'm not giving up my gun, especially if I'm around you. So that's just the reality of the situation there. Rick, I'll start off there. What is your thoughts on Trevor Noah and his stand-up comedy?
I don't think he's ever been funny. I'm not exactly sure why he was hired to replace Jon Stewart. And I actually remember when The Daily Show was a genuine comedy show, and it was just spoofing the news and the eccentric news stories. It wasn't a half-hour political commercial from Jon Stewart. This is the thing. He's free to say anything he wishes, but he should expect people to say, no, you're wrong. I don't know if he'll get any pushback, certainly not by the people that he is with and works with and associates with. But again, he has every right to say this. I don't think it's funny, and there weren't any actual jokes. And there's the thing about a lot of comedians today. Well, at least the ones that I know, like Trevor Noah, John Oliver, Seth Meyers. They're not comedians. They're just commentators with a laugh track. That's all that they are, and that's all they've been for quite a while. I will say real quick, first, I'm one of the few Texans who does not actually own a gun, so that makes me kind of an outlier. And second, I have never been big on guns myself, but knowing that there's literally only one gun store in the entire nation of Mexico, and you have to go through a lot of security, and they have very strict gun laws. That makes me a little dubious about more restrictions. Not that I'm, promoting guns or want guns all over the place, but we have to be a little careful when we just say you need to turn in all your guns. I'm not big on guns, but I don't think we should be turning
especially in when it's the people who want you dead saying that you need to turn in your guns.
Well, yeah, it's a little concerning. That, I think, actually opened up a lot of people when they saw the celebrations and they saw the cheering, and they said, I agree with Charlie Kirk, and they want me dead, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. This happened also when they tried to kill the former president at the time. I don't want former presidents assassinated in front of me. I don't want young kids. And by the way, it would have been his birthday, I think. He would have been 32, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, today.
I don't want to assassinate people who disagree with me any more than I want them to assassinate me. Or it's just, at a certain point, you don't need to comment. Again, this goes, like I was saying in the last segment, you don't need to try to make jokes about this because it comes off as not petty or mean spirited. It comes as vicious and just beating up on a dead person. It's very creepy. But at a certain point, people like Trevor Noah believe that they are so morally superior to the rest of us that anything that they say is right and anything they say is good. And I would say you need to temper that, but I don't know if they ever will.
Like I said, some of these people, in all honesty, I think they're just too far gone. Like I'm not going to say that about everyone, but I think that as we've seen here over the course of the last month, there are people out there who are just too far gone. Their mind is too corrupted with evil to ever think rationally again, and these are the dangerous people. I will say this: the guy, what's his name, Scott Adams, I should say, the guy, the Dilbert creator who's dealing with cancer, he took a lot of shit a handful of years ago for simply saying that there's no way to fix this. Like you're not. This is not something that we can vote our way out of. This is not something that we can debate our way out of. Like you cannot fix this. And he took a lot of heat for saying that. Now here we are, 2025. I don't think that as many people are looking at that statement as completely, ridiculous and over the top as they did when he said it 5 years ago.
You
Rob,
should
what's your take on it?
You should see the video that Scott Adams posted just a couple days ago. It was fantastic, and it was basically all about that whole thing. Sorry. It was just about how if you back Trump and you did it early, and you're still here, there's really like those things where it's like, and I'm certainly not in that camp, but it's like but I went through the whole pandemic thing, and I went through like just that tide turning of like, oh, people literally see me as I don't know, not a parasite, but basically like a low level a person in society because I won't get a vaccine because I don't think the masks work or stop transmission because, I think that people should ultimately be free to make their choices, take risks as they come. And that's part of being an American and all of that. And, seeing what happened, seeing like the president try to be assassinated, seeing all of these attempts to arrest him, to call him a felon, a 37-time felon, to all this stuff. And it's like, all of this was, and basically it summed up what he was saying was, I'm not going to do what you tell me. And I know that, listen, I know that everybody tries to label these things and frame these things, but I've always been a little punk. Okay. I know punk obviously died a long time ago, but the idea of saying, fuck you, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me what to think. You're not going to tell me what to eat and how to live my life. And I know I'm still a 15-year-old, but the whole point of that is that was the driving force for me too during COVID, during that whole thing. And I was right. And I literally forfeited my job. So nobody can tell me that I didn't live my convictions. And that's what that whole Scott Adams thing was. It was great. Yeah. Trevor Noah is an untalented hack. Okay. A hack is somebody that like, they tell the easiest fucking jokes that you can. One of them out of 5 might be funny, but they're tired. You've heard them before. It's not hard to do. And he can't even do that. He's an unfunny hack. He can't even land a joke, 1 in every 5 joke. And this wasn't even a joke. This was a poor attempt at an observation during a stand-up comedy routine, I think.
It's where political commentary.
But it's not. But here's the thing, and all comedians know this. And Trevor Noah tried to couch it in this, where it's like, oh, this is what comedians do. You weren't pushing the envelope with a joke. You weren't telling a joke. So that makes it even worse. It's like, it's one thing to be tasteless and still go for the funny and to do a fucked up thing with it. Comedians do that all the time. I love insult comedy. I love fucked up jokes. Okay. But like, if you're going to be funny, be funny. Otherwise it's like, it's a huge risk you're taking, but you didn't even do that. You literally just said, hey, isn't it ironic that a guy got shot after talking about how people should have guns? It's like, no, because there'll always be maniacs, you fucking moron. And that's why we need guns to protect people from guns. You fucking idiot.
That is interesting. No, that is
that
interesting.
never comes into the fucking brain, does it? It's like, There are dangerous people out there, and we need to protect people from those dangerous people.
And not only that,
makes sense.
It's interesting. I think it was Douglas Murray, who's a British political commentator. He made the same observation when it came to Israel and Gaza. We're saying, what is it? Yas Bassem, well, the guy who was the John Stewart of the Middle East. What was his name? Yusuf Bassem.
Yasser Arafat.
No, that is what he has been constantly going on about the Jews and Israel, and he said all these comedians, they'll just say all these horrible things, but then they'll when you criticize them, they'll say, "Oh, I was just a comedian," and that's exactly what Bassem Youssef has done. He was the profiled in Tickling Giants, where he was seen as a Jon Stewart of the Middle East and feted and celebrated. He has turned into the most raging, deranged anti-Semite. And then when he gets pushed back, oh, it's just my job. I was just telling jokes. It's about time they took responsibility for what they say and say, you know what, I'm not going to couch my my socio-political views. I'm just going to say what I think and make commentary, but throw in a quip here or there. And Rob, I just want to thank you so much. It's unfortunate that you had to forfeit your job, but just think of the millions of lives that were saved because of that. If it saves just one life, it's worth that you lost your job. I hope you know that.
And your rights. And your rights too.
I just
that's
want to
all
point
right.
out that Washington State is in a massive budget shortfall where they've had to lay off 35% of their state workforce. So guess what? It would have happened anyway. And I'm glad that I was able to stand on my principles and stand up for something I believed in and said, no, thank you.
But if it saved just one life, apparently my job too was worth saving some person's life. And I'd like to know who I saved. I'm sure I saved millions of lives, but we all did. Our jobs
and
were
for
worth
the
it.
record, I just used to really like the Daily Show. Now this is when I was a liberal, but it used to be about fun. It used to be about comedy. It used to be a funny show, and it used to
Make fun. Yeah, it used to make fun of.
Because it was about hypocrisy. It was about saying, holding up a politician who's saying one thing and voting another way, or sometimes it was just bullshit. It was just edited together.
And
bullshit.
it's probably be a
wasn't
controversial
funny
statement for
since
me.
Greg Kilborn was the last funny host.
Yeah. And then that was a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. I would say that it was pretty funny through the Bush administration. But again, I was much younger and of a very different mindset at the time.
I mean, it's always been kind of, especially of the last 20 so years, been left-wing political slop, because essentially what it started off as is like, hey, let's just make fun of like Washington, but in a comedic way. But they only did that during the Bush administration. Then when it shifted towards the Obama administration, it's like, well, let's mock the opposition to Barack Obama, because of course they weren't actually going to go after Obama. And then basically when Trump came along, just like everything else in the late night circle, it's just that 24/7 Trump. And that's what it's been for a while. So I think a lot of stuff is like, none of this stuff is really new. It's been around for a while. It was more subtle then, so you probably didn't notice it as much now, but I'm pretty sure if you go back and you watch some of those things, it's like, oh no, it was actually pretty slanted there. But maybe it's because my politics kind of aligned more with this back at the time. I didn't really notice it as much, but yeah, with a different viewing eye, you might see it a little bit differently here too. And then, like I said, Trevor Noah is not funny. He's not a comedian. There's nothing here that was a joke. His whole setup to the joke was, hey, isn't it funny that the guy who supports gun rights got shot in the neck? Isn't that hilarious? It's just funny because he was talking about guns and he got shot. Isn't that's this whole setup for the joke? And then he turns it around and be like, oh, doesn't it suck that Jimmy Kimmel got canceled for 3 days? And everyone applauds. Like that's not a stand-up routine. That's basically what comedy has become over the course of the last 10, 15 years, is just liberals having a venting session about the things that they don't like about their lives.
I will say that
another example of it.
I'll say that the only thing I've seen Trevor Noah in, because I never saw the Daily Show when he was there, maybe a clip or two, but the only thing I've seen Trevor Noah in was in Coming to America, the sequel.
Oh no!
So yes, so he doesn't strike me as particularly funny. Of course, the whole thing was monstrous, but just throwing that out there. That's the only thing I've seen Trevor Noah in. Granted, a small role, but he was part of it.
Yeah, none of that was funny, and I did forget for a while that existed until you brought it back up. So I really that you did that. So
Sorry.
let,
Please forgive me.
let's talk about Rob's boy Brett Easton Ellis, because apparently he got into some trouble this week, basically stating the obvious, what I said about the film from the very beginning, that this movie, one battle after another, which is basically just like an Antifa wet dream movie. Like, that's essentially what it is. It's all about, communist
It's your generation Citizen
revolutionaries.
Kane. Stop it.
Communist revolutionaries going up against ICE. So essentially, it's a superhero movie for psychotic progressive liberals. That's all that it is. It turns Leo's character and the black chick Taylor, I don't even know what her first name is, but it just basically turns all these characters into Marvel superheroes for stunted growth adults. That's all it does. And Brett had a little bit of a commentary about it. It made like viral news. Even Variety talked about it here too. But he basically says that the American Psycho author Brett Easton Ellis is calling out the acclaimed critical response for the movie One Battle After Another. It's like, we love this movie. This movie is amazing. It's like, yeah, I wonder why.
Something real quick. He didn't even, the podcast that this was on wasn't even really planning on addressing the movie. It was a Q&A episode. Somebody asked him what his thought was on One Battle After Another. And this was his response, just like off the top of his head. And so like the fact that it went viral and like got all these headlines and stuff, it's like, what the fuck? This happened, a half decade ago with Black Panther, where he was just like, yeah, it sucks. I don't know why everybody thinks it's so good. He's a racist. It's like, no, I'm honest. Like,
you're not allowed to not like this movie. That's literally what it comes down to. But yeah, the media is trying to astroturf this film so much. As it stands right now, the film is at $141 million worldwide. The budget was $175 million. So this is not a financial success by any stretch of the imagination. And I think I talked about this a few weeks back. Like, I remember before we really figured out what this film was all about, I was like, I don't remember there being like any real hype for this movie, like whatsoever. It wasn't until people found out it was an Antifa superhero movie that people try to be like, oh, this film's amazing, but before that no one was talking about it. But yeah, he made some comments about the movie that, basically says the only reason why people are pretending to like it because it aligns with left-wing politics. And he says that it's kind of shocking to see the kind of accolades for, I'm sorry, it's not a very good movie. It's because of its political ideology, and it's so obvious that they're responding to it. And this is Ellis talking about the critical reaction to the film. It's like, why is it considered a masterpiece, the greatest film of the decade, the greatest film ever made? It's because it really aligns with a kind of leftist sensibility. And he said that Ellis predicted the movie will soon be seen as the kind of the musty old relic from the post-Kamala Harris era. It says that thing that everyone gathers around and pretends is so fantastic and so great, but it really isn't, just to make a point. There's a liberal mustiness to this movie that already feels very dated by October 2025. Very dated, and it's just doesn't read the room. Well, like I said, when you're in an echo chamber, you can't read the room. But you know that it reads a tiny corner of the room, but this is not what's going on in America. Again, the entire movie is to aspire people who hate ICE, the left-wing lunatic people who hate Trump and hate ICE. This is basically revenge porn for those individuals. And according to another critic, Ellis said that it was an important movie. Ellis says, no, it's not. It's not. It has not read the room. It's not read the room about what's going on here in America. Like I said, this is the critical response, just completely denouncing everything that people have been saying about this. Variety's own, movie reviewer raved about the film, calling it a mesmerizing vision of the police state of America. It's like, just say you love this movie because you hate Trump. Just say you love this movie because you hate ICE. Like, if you would just say that and be honest, then we can at least go from there. But to try to gaslight yourself and everyone else into thinking that this was a great, amazing movie, it's like, just stop it. Stop trying to pretend like you actually have an intellectual point about how good this movie actually is, and just say, I like this movie because I hate Trump and I hate cops. Just say that. Like, no one's gonna, unlike the left, no one's gonna shoot you in the neck for saying things like that. So you're good. You can just say that safely. But Rob, Brett's your guy. So what's your thoughts on his comments?
Yeah, I've actually been listening to his podcast for 12 years this November. So yeah, I'm very familiar with the guy. I'm very familiar with his views. And like me, he's kind of a contrarian. He tends to not go with the crowd. But he, I disagree with him as much as I agree with him too, because like he loved challengers. You know what I mean? He likes some movies that I absolutely think are
I can
fucking
speculate
terrible.
as to why he liked challengers. But
Yeah, I
I
know.
don't
We all
want to get into
he's a gay man. That's why he likes it. Yeah. And by the way, literally one of the guys looks so fucking much like his ex-boyfriend. It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on. Josh O'Connor, by the way. Moving on. But he has lived through the whole Trump thing in LA. He lives in West Hollywood. He lives in a very gay friendly neighborhood, but he deals with all of this echo chamber bullshit. He goes to dinner with people. He has people. He meets people at business meetings. He works with different people. Where it's like, you guys are completely detached from what's actually going on, from how most people live, how most people are living through the 2016 through 2020, and again through the pandemic. And then when Trump was reelected, it was just like he wrote the book White, which was basically all about how like, yeah, Trump's not that bad, guys. You're overreacting. You're having a hissy fit. And again, these are rich, wealthy, elitist Hollywood types who were like having nervous breakdowns over Trump's presidency, and like it was the end of the world. And it was just like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? What is wrong with you people? And so he experienced all of this stuff where he's just like, he's very he doesn't have a lot of patience for this kind of like liberal hand-holding bullshit. And look, I came into this movie with Paul Thomas Anderson knowing he was an excellent filmmaker, knowing he can make a very good movie. And this is probably his most disappointing attempt, and again, he made Hard 8 back in the mid-90s, which kind of got mangled by the studio. And Licorice Pizza wasn't great, but I think it was a much better movie than One Battle After Another. And I liked One Battle After Another enough to give it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was funny. But I agree with Bret Easton Ellis. He says, I'm not going to rewatch this movie. I have no desire to. There's nothing that is going to make me return to it. And, he echoes what I've said a lot of the time, which is, I love revisiting movies that are really good and finding new stuff, finding things I didn't see before. And you just don't get a lot of that with new movies, especially something like One Battle After Another. So I agree with most of what he's saying here. There is a sort of smug, self-satisfactory thing to it. I more or less read that as a tell, as a sort of like satirical commentary on how these extremist groups view themselves, as if they're above reproach, as if they don't do terrible things, in the name of whatever, freedom or being free of an oppressor or whatever it might be. So he was a lot harder on it than I was. But again, I think he's just fed up with this, you people are so fucking detached from what's going on. And like the reason Trump won was because the things he was saying what people wanted to hear. He spoke to the issues that people were dealing with. And even if he doesn't fix grocery prices or egg prices or whatever it might be, it's like he at least is addressing the concern. The Democrats didn't even do that. They told you that hot dogs were 2 cents cheaper. And what it was, I forget the number, but it was like
they were gaslighting,
Yeah,
they were gaslighting you into thinking everything was fine because they were in control and they couldn't take responsibility for anything. So they didn't even bother to address the issues that people actually had.
And that's what's funny is this guy is not political. He's all about aesthetics. And he said the movie's very well shot. It looks good or whatever. But it's like he is not one of these people that likes that, like, beat you over the head with, like, and over the last 4 or 5 years, he's been even more selective than I have been. If you think that I'm incredibly hard on movies, this is the guy that I basically learned that from, how to have judgment, discernment, how to look at things, how to look at them through historical, social, cultural context. It's been a great education, but in the last 5 years, we've diverted even. But so I trust him when he says this. And one of the points that we didn't get to was how hard he was on other critics. He basically said that the other critics are just lying. They're lying because they agree with the political persuasion that he sees the movie presenting, like Magnola Dargis of the New York Times.
Well, I'm reminded of what It's an apocryphal quote, I think, from Pauline Kael. I think you know it, Rob. You know, when after Nixon was elected, she said, "I don't know how Nixon could have won. No one I knew voted for him." So that is kind of the world that a lot of the people live in. I suspect that a lot of the film critics who really have been so over the top with their praise for One Battle After Another, and I gave it a positive review. I just posted it, I think, this morning. I gave it a positive review because it was a well-made film, and I thought, like you, it made fun of both sides. It didn't take them serious, but people will draw whatever opinion they see the kind of world that they imagine is going on. Like, they literally think that I am hiding from ICE. That I'm running in terror, and that whole raid was supposed to be like the Hispanic Kristallnacht, where they're all running in terror, citizens and non-citizens. I think that it's a well-made film, but I don't think that people really should praise it the way it has been praised. And like I keep saying, I'm tired of seeing one Citizen Kane after another. We've had 3 at least this year, like these turning points in film history. I make fun of them because it's just so over the top. I just kind of a real quick thing here. Even my very pro-Palestine, we need to get rid of the Zionists co-worker, even he said, you know what? They're over the top in the praise for One Battle After Another. It's interesting that he very much on the left thinks that it's kind of gone overboard, and it's not the film that I think is the best. I think there are at least one film that is better. I liked F1 better, and I would prefer to watch that than I would watch One Battle After Another. It's been a terrible year, but enough. Calm down. One thing you didn't mention, Rob, about Bret Easton Ellis, I liked his comment. I think he's the one that said that people were telling me that the chase scene was one of the greatest in all film history. It's like, yeah, it was good, but it's not like
it's not a chase scene. He said it's not a chase scene. It's cars following each other. And here's the thing, though, he came of age in the 70s where there was just some amazing car chase movies. So it's like you're comparing.
Yeah.
Okay, when you say it's one of the greatest car, do you know what you're comparing? You're comparing it to the French Connection. Okay, just stop.
Yeah, you compare it to. I mean, I'm sure Bullet is probably better.
Right. Bullet, Vanishing Point. I mean, even if that's not a great movie, I love Vanishing Point. But even if you don't think it's a great movie, it has some great stunts and car chases.
But again, I wonder, these critics are not. I don't know if they're reviewing the movie or they're reviewing their feelings and their identification with Perfidia and the French 75 or whatever. But they're not good people. They're human smugglers. We have to. I keep telling people they're human smugglers because they're bringing in people who are not, who are here without authorization. I don't understand the praise, but there you go. It's going to sweep the Oscars and it's going to be watched. Who's really going to watch this movie? Like even 5 years from now,
people who hate Trump and people who hate ICE. That's exactly who's going to watch this movie. By the way, you just brought up another hilarious thing. Like I said, people who have 2 conflicting viewpoints. These are the people who are suddenly, just in the last few months, so obsessed with the Epstein files, yet they're rooting for literal human traffickers. Just throw it out there. There's no correlation between any one of those things there. So it's like, yeah, we'll just throw that hypocrisy down the side. But yeah, very, very, very. Like I said, Bret Easton Ellis, I never listened to his podcast, not because I don't want to, it's just I really have an interest to watch it. But yeah, look, he said, assumingly what every other normal person said about this film, and this is only a shocking statement to people who live in that, let's just call it a Hollywood Reporter variety bubble. So that's all.
What's funny is to see people like attack him like last week or whatever, and it's just like who know nothing about him, and it's like, yeah,
fascist.
He literally wrote American Psycho. I mean, American Psycho, by the way, like, and obviously it's the movie is very different than the book, but he wrote it as a satire, absolutely, but it was very much criticizing the Donald Trump Wall Street America that everybody was obsessed with in the late 80s. So he himself knows a lot about Donald Trump, and he's still like, yeah, you guys are insufferable comparative, like Democrats and liberals. It's like, and he's just like, yeah, no, you can say whatever you want about Trump as a figure and a whatever, but like in terms of the whole, the how it's battling out Democrats, Republicans in Congress, him as the president, it's like he just keeps winning, and it's almost none of it is based on substance. And the fact that like Democrats have not been able to ever figure this out, and that these people still remain in these echo chambers, that they don't ever like learn from their own behavior, it's kind of amazing. And I hope that hope someone writes a history book one day, just so that we can get this captured, this time frame.
Oh,
Because it's like,
I'm sure.
everybody just lost their mind, or at least a lot of people did.
Here's the thing: the critics that I follow on X Twitter, they pretty much live in the same area, either New York or Los Angeles or the surrounding areas. They speak to each other, they know each other, and they have pretty much the same mindset. I think a couple of them, and I know you probably don't like them, Rob, are very enthusiastic for Soran Monrani to win. I mean, they're happy. They're like desperate for him to win. The guy who's running for mayor, the socialist in New York City.
That guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are very cheering. Their campaign for him and all that good stuff. I think I'm a little different because I am kind of isolated and I am in the middle of the country, and I don't always agree with either side. But I actually talk to people who are on the right and on the left, and like I told you, I have my commie best friend, and I have someone who is very, who's so much to the right. He's probably further to the right than Charlie Kirk was. I get along well with them, but that's because I understand that people are not always have to agree with me. That's the thing that I think a lot of the critics that we follow don't understand. They don't know anyone who sees the world different. So of course they're all going to be so enthusiastic for one battle after another. Did I like it? Yes. Did I think it's too long? Yes. It's not perfect, but please, it's not the greatest film ever made. I'm not going to watch this movie again. Just like I'm not going to watch Nora ever again. I'm not going to watch Sinners ever again. Stop it. Stop it. Curtail your jubilation. Pull yourself together and stop.
Double down. Double down.
Oh, that was the other part, was that he talked to a friend of his who really hated it. And he was like, you really think this is going to get nominated for multiple Oscars? He's like, yeah, not only do I think it's going to get, not only do I think it's going to get nominated for a bunch of Oscars, I think Paul Thomas Anderson's going to win Best Director. And listen, I obviously I don't know who the other nominees are. If he does get nominated, I wouldn't hate it if he won, because if it's about directing, it's fine. I'm actually fine with that, because that means all the other directors in the Academy voted for him to win. But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping. I always have this hope, because I don't pay that much attention to the release schedule, where it's like I hope we get like 3 or 4 good adult movies that contend for like awards because they're good, in the fall. But that has really not happened the last like decade. It's like we're lucky if we get 4 or 5 movies that are worth talking about.
If he beats Sinners, it's going to be because of racism. They don't want to give Ryan Coogler his Oscar for Best Director, for making the first Citizen Kane of the year.
How many times has Paul Thomas Anderson been nominated for Best Director versus Ryan Coogler?
Well, I think overall he's gotten 11 career nominations in various categories. I want to say like screenplay, director, picture. I don't know, but it's obvious that
there's nothing to nominate. That's the problem. There's nothing. I've heard Hamnet, that fucking Chloe Zhao movie, is apparently amazing, with Jesse Buckley and Paul Mescal, which I still haven't seen anything with him in it. So I'm just like, okay, who is this guy?
Didn't you see a Gladiator 2?
Gladiator 2. I'm sorry. It was so forgettable that I actually, I missed that one. But yeah, let's hope there's something good. Because look, I'm getting my F1 4K Steelbook on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. But that's pretty much it. It's literally Eddington is my favorite movie of the year, and that one was basically a better version of One Battle After Another, where it has Antifa firefights, and but to me that one's a lot better with the social commentary.
Oh, I did see one other Paul Mescal movie, All of Us Strangers, which got a Criterion. That's the one where he ends up having sex with a gay ghost. No, he has sex with a ghost.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I was the only one. I was laughing, and all the other people were crying, and I was like, "It's a ghost. I mean, the guy's dead. Why are you crying? This
That's why
doesn't make
David
any
Lowery's
sense."
a ghost story just didn't work for me, because the only way ghost stories really work, if it's not that Vincent Price way, that like ridiculous melodramatic theatrical 1960s way, is if it's like this, like I don't know, it's like got to be an emotional thing, like you're haunted by you miss someone, you and that their presence haunts you or whatever. But it's not like a horror thing, it's more of like a existential longing. So like that makes sense cinematically to me, that I can get on board with that. The thing where you're scared of a white sheet, I just can't. I'm sorry, the Conjuring movies, I'm just, why anything that's supernatural just takes me out of it.
I'll say this real quick. I don't think I'll ever watch One Battle After Another. You know which film I will watch more than once? Theater
Rewatch
of
it.
Blood. Theater of
Yeah.
Blood with Vincent Price. That I enjoy watching repeatedly.
That's another
Not-
favorite
yeah.
movie of Bret Easton Ellis. He grew
Oh,
up
I
watching that.
love Theater of Blood.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Great music. You get to see it's just fun. Enjoy it. It's a romp.
Yeah.
But I'll watch that before I watch Sinners or One Battle After Another. Can't say anything about Marty Supreme because it hasn't come out yet, but that's
This
the
is
third
going to be
contained.
this is going to be the most pretentious like film award season in quite some time. Like
This is a depressing film season. I
Yeah.
really, all of these movies have been pretty.
Oh no! That was the best line from his thing on One Battle After Another. It'll be this year's Amelia Perez. That's what he said, it just like that, in a fake like Hispanic accent. Oh my god. Anyway, it's gonna get like 15 nominations and no win. No, if it gets nominated, I think it'll win just because there's not much to,
You've got Sinners.
It'll probably win awards just so that they can go up there and make speeches about how timely this movie is and how it's a mirror of our world today and all. Like you know it's gonna happen. Like just bring on. Like we know how this film ends. Like bring on. I've seen this movie already. But let's end the show here talking about our boy James Gunn, because there's been some interesting developments here with James Gunn and this incredibly shitty Peacemaker show that's been released here. Apparently, even the people who were actually fans of this are upset about how this whole thing ended, because James Gunn made all these promises about, oh, if you want to understand what's going to happen in the DCEU, it's like you got to watch. So first of all, I'm going to be completely blunt with you guys. This is coming from someone who was kind of with the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe thing when it first started. If you're still getting hyped up for potential superhero releases, whether it be movies or television shows in 2025, you may be a complete fucking loser. I'm just saying that objectively. You may be someone who needs to seek help or therapy or Jesus or all three combined, right? This is a whole like DCEU thing. James Gunn was never qualified to be in this position to begin with. He never was. It was a blunder from David Zaslav from the very beginning. It's like, why would you put him in charge of a film studio? Like, what has he done to warrant any kind of trust to that level? The Superman movie that he did earlier this year came and went. It made less money than Man of Steel, so the whole reboot was completely useless for the most part. And then essentially this Peacemaker show is the only show where he's basically had like free reign to do whatever he want. And all he did in the context of this season was do bisexual gay orgies, create a world run by Nazis that just so happens to love Jesus, by the way. Not so subtle shot at, right-wing Americans that he's openly called Nazis in the past. And then essentially, this is, by the way, I just want to also keep this in note. This is for you pro wrestling fans out there. John Cena is retiring from wrestling here in a couple of weeks. I think he has he may actually only have 2, maybe 3 more appearances left before he's done in professional wrestling. And he's leaving the wrestling world where he's actually loved and respected to do this shit. This is what he's jumping ahead to. So great move there, John. That's all I have to say. But now there's talks of not only of this show being a complete disaster and no one liking season 2, there's talks that there's not going to be a season 3, which if you look at the first 2 seasons of the show, it's basically James Gunn's vehicle to vent about all the things that he hasn't been able to publicly tweet about over the last 10 years, ever since people started digging into his tweets. So this whole show has just been therapy for one to get out all of his Nazi propaganda that he's been bubbling up for the last several years, and apparently he just wants to see his wife make out and have sex with a bunch of dudes on screen. And keep in mind, this is a 60-year-old childless man who's doing this with his wife, who's one of the stars of this show. Make of that as you will.
Well, isn't that the same thing that one of the Coen brothers does?
Yeah, no, it's even worse. It's Ethan Coen is developing a lesbian trilogy series with his wife, who's openly a lesbian, and the stories that they're doing is about her sexcapades in the 90s and the 2000s as a lesbian while they were married to one another. So this is Hollywood, folks. These are the people who think they're morally superior than you. Just want to throw that out there. But over the course of the last couple of days, Warner Brothers has rejected a plea for a buyout for Paramount. And there's been talks about if Paramount or Skydance were to buy out Warner Brothers and take all their debt and do the whole limbo thing again. Because at this point, Warner Brothers is arguably, I'm not even joking, it's an asset that probably should have died about 25 years ago. People just keep selling off their debt every 5 years. It's just a leverage point at this point. The studio is not only creatively bankrupt, morally bankrupt, but it's like it should have just gone under with Ted Turner at this point. Like everything associated with that brand should have died with Ted Turner and the AOL merger all those years ago. But essentially, if new ownership, I should say, comes around, they're going to get rid of Zasloff. They're going to get rid of Gunn. Gunn likely won't even be around to see, I guess, his third movie of this whole thing. He did Superman. That movie flopped. His only other project he's got coming out now is Supergirl, which comes out next year. And you're only going to be excited about that if you were really excited about that last scene in the Superman movie, which not that many people were. So good luck with that whole situation. But now all of a sudden people are like, well, all this crap failed. We tried to reboot the whole thing, get everyone excited away from the Snyderverse. It didn't work out. Now where do we go now? And in the course of the next couple of months, you could see Warner Brothers get bought out by Paramount. You could see them get bought out by Skydance. And I will say this here, do not sleep on the Saudi Arabian government. The Saudis have the money to clear out all the debt that Warner Brothers have. You don't think the Saudis would love to be in control of Batman and Superman and all of these comic book properties? You don't think that the Saudis wouldn't love to have control over, let's say, CNN or TNT, all these major sports networks? Do not sleep on the Saudi Arabian government making a bid to buy out Warner Brothers and take up all that debt, because they're literally the only people around who can actually pay it all off and then move forward with what they have.
No, that's going to be fun, seeing Superman stand for truth, justice, and the Islamic way.
Yeah. I can't wait for Islamic Green Lantern. That's going to be so great. He's going to don the colors of the Saudi Arabian flag, and he's going to say the Shahada. It's going to be great, guys. It's going to be amazing. I mean, yeah, you might as well, right? We got Batman choking out ICE agents. We might as well have Jihad Superman. I was like, I'm all in for it now. It's like, I don't have any respect for any of these properties or any of these franchises anymore. They've done it to themselves. They've essentially committed Sokapu to begin with. So it's like, you know what? Let's go full clown war. Let's just burn it all to the ground. When it comes to the world of entertainment, maybe not the real world, because there are real world applications here, but when it comes to the world of entertainment and these properties and Hollywood in general, I am full-blown accelerationism at this point. Let it all burn down to the ground. That's kind of where I stand here. But like I said, Peacemaker season 2 sucked. It was all James Gunn venting about Nazis because he can't do it on Twitter anymore. The finale sucked. Even the fans of the show didn't like it. And now we're going to be asking ourselves, how much longer does James Gunn have left before the new owners of whatever Warner Brothers turns into kicks him to the curb? And then that's the story. So, and Leslie, you're not completely wrong, but at the same time, progressives have done a great job doing that for them for the last 30 years, and this is where we're at right now. Now the Saudis can basically just come in, pick up the scraps of all of our IPs that we spent over 100 years creating on our own rights, and now we're just going to hand it off to the caliphate. So that's where we're at. Rob, what is your take on James Gunn and Peacemaker?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot here, because I mean, I'm just not a fan of James Gunn. I mean, even I suppose if people thought he was good at any time, you know, they liked Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I don't know. I don't know what people think of him in relation to with what he's released, but The only time that I really liked James Gunn was when he made a disgusting, degenerate comedy movie called Movie 43, where he got a bunch of celebrities to do disgusting things.
It's
pretty
almost
funny.
as if it's a trend.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those, like, if you know what a late night movie is, it's very much that. It's just like we're throwing shit at the wall, we're being ridiculous, we're gluing testicles to Hugh Jackman's chin. But that's my relationship with James Gunn. I kind of find it interesting. He used to be married to Jenna Fisher, who played Pam Beesly on The Office.
Yeah.
And like, if you know anything about James Gunn and his background and what he supposedly is gotten into or is interested in, I always want to be like, hey, so like, is there a reason you guys got divorced? So anyway, it's just something I've speculated on in my head, because we talk about James Gunn a lot, but with what's happening with Warner Brothers, being sold or whatever's going on there, it really sounds like he's shit out of luck, because while he was kind of given carte blanche to remake the DC universe and his vision, he really hasn't done much. I mean, like, he has one movie out, it kind of flopped. It was lukewarm. He's done a few of the TV shows on HBO Max. A lot of those numbers are inflated anyway in terms of like the premiere and then the day after and the streaming numbers and all that shit. So it's like, who knows how successful that stuff is anyway. And then, like you said, the feedback has been mostly negative. So, it doesn't look too good for him. I mean, if Warner Brothers stays in business as a single entity or whatever, maybe that gives him some more time since these projects are in development, but I don't know. They're going to have to decide that, like, basically if Superman's a flop, and it is, are we going to stay invested in this universe? Are we going to continue? Because there's really there's no track record to go off of when it comes to James Gunn. I mean, what was the last movie that he released? It was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah.
It did okay. I'm not going to lie. It did okay. But it's I don't know. It just seems like there's not a whole lot of juice left in the bottle with him and his creative output. And it doesn't help that he wants to kind of make this political, like, he wants it to be light, but also he wants to make this political commentary along with it that is so heavy-handed. I mean, the whole, like, Israel prime minister thing in the Superman movie, and like, just that kind of stuff is just like, dude, first of all, the movie's not good enough for you to get away with this. Second of all, it's just bad. So it just lays there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And
then, not to mention, the old James Gunn slipped out here over the course of the last couple of weeks, because when he did the whole reveal of the whole Earth X thing and people were kind of upset by it, he basically called them all racist and basically said that, it's only the Nazis that are complaining about this, and I'm fine with the Nazis being upset by my shitty TV reveal. So, like I said, for anyone who thought for a second that James Gunn had actually changed over the course of the last couple of years, you were fooling yourself in a big way. He's a 60-year-old degenerate. Like, it's just what it is. Like, it's not even subtly anything to say about him. I'm thinking back to myself, when was the last time he's actually done something that wasn't in some way, shape, or form comic book related? Because, like I said, this is a 60-year-old man that all you can go back to is that everything's been comic books and Scooby-Doo for essentially the last 30 years. The only two movies that I can point out that are kind of outside of that realm, one is the Slitter movie from 2006, and the other one was the Belko Experiment, what he wrote but didn't direct. And that was a whole other thing in and of itself. Outside of that, everything else has been in some way, shape, or form comic book related for 20 years now from James Gunn. So yeah, you're dealing with a man who literally cannot grow up. Rick,
I'm still puzzled as to why they gave him the keys to the kingdom and decided that he was going to lead the DC into this new golden age. I'm just puzzled. That's my big takeaway. I never saw Peacemaker. I never cared for this show. I didn't even know about it. I know that when he when John Cena pops up in Superman, I was like, "What's he doing here?" I actually thought the character died in one of those Suicide Squad movies. It's like, oh no no no, he actually came back in the post credits. Like I had no interest to stay to the very end, so I didn't even know about it. It's like there's a TV show. I again don't have much to add. Only that hey, the executives decided to give this man carte blanche and to put him in like a 5-year plan, and he was going to revive it. Maybe they aren't, and maybe they just should let it go. And it's the same with comic book movies in general. Who here even remembers that? What was it? Brave New World came out. Didn't it come out this year? I don't remember. You see, none of us
The
remember it.
Captain America one, yeah, that
Yeah,
came out like February, I think.
yeah. You see, none of us remember it. None of us care. None of us
Yeah.
care about the Supergirl movie. None of us
We,
care
we
about
completely
any of the
forgot about the Thunderbolts that came out right after that.
Yeah, yeah. And isn't there another one that's going to come out? And then the TV
Okay.
shows.
Fantastic
We,
Four. That's right.
oh
That was the third one.
yeah, that came out. You see, we don't care. It's not just that. It's not just that he created a show that got his feelings out. Good for him if that's what he wants to do. But is the audience? Is he going to take the audience? Is he going to bring them in, or is he going to just like appeal to? I don't know who's even watching these shows. Honestly, all of these shows, all of these movies, it's time for the genre to just quietly go the way of the musicals. Apologies to Kiss of the Spider Woman. It should go the way of the westerns. Apologies to was it Horizon Chapter 27. Some genres just
No,
expire.
I'm sorry. The Western is the original. First of all, it's an original genre in literature, much less cinema. So, and
Graphic
maybe I'm
novels
just
are literature now,
an old
Roberto.
fogey, but Westerns will always exist, even if they don't make them anymore,
Well, they don't
which is
make.
largely
I'm
what
just
it is
saying
now.
the Western could go, be dormant and then come back and then dormant, but it's not as dominant as it was back in like the 30s,
The
40s, and 50s.
1930s, you're right.
Yes. So the same with musicals. Musicals were big in the 40s and 50s, and now you get one every so often, and even now they can't. Now they can't make good musicals, but some genres eventually fade away, and the comic book genre it's long past its expiration date. Only diehard fans and grown men who are mentally 12 are still excited to see these. So again, it's time just to close up shop with Marvel and DC. But as for James Gunn, hey, they
I
decided
just
to.
like I just like Watchmen came out in 2009. And certainly it wasn't at the very beginning, but it was pretty much at the beginning of the deluge of comic book movies. And I don't know, if you take a step back, just look at that movie and what it's saying. It's like, hey, grow the fuck up. Throw your fucking comic books away. These people are deranged assholes. Do you see this? They want to blow up the fucking world. Do you see that? These people, you don't want to be like these people. Fuck
I don't
them.
know. I mean, apparently the TV show was one of another.
No. The
trending-
movie. The
Yeah,
movie
but I'm saying
Watchmen.
the TV show.
Before it was ruined by Damien Lindelof, who made The Leftovers and Lost. I never saw Lost. The Leftovers I really like, but I'm sure there's some kind of blasphemy in there being a non religious rapture show. But that was a fantastic TV show. But yeah, Watchmen was fucking awful, where they turned Rorschach into a white supremacist.
That's the thing with this Peacemaker show. Again, who's watching it? Who really cares? Who's this invested that they're going to spend all their time? I don't know. I don't know anyone who's excited about it. I don't think we need to know about it. It's like
Degenerate. So let's just call it what it is.
just end it. Just end the whole thing. We don't care. Are we ever getting Echo season 2?
I've never watched any of these Disney Plus shows or any of I don't watch TV shows, I guess, is ultimately what it comes down to. And I am on my 12th rewatch of The Sopranos currently in season 5. But seriously, I'm 36 years old and I just watch the same like 13 TV shows. Deadwood, The Sopranos, 6 Feet Under, Curb Your Enthusiasm, you know, Oz, The Wire, Mad Men. It's because you know what? TV's not going to get better than that, and it's fine. I have accepted that. TV is a garbage medium. It's just supposed to be content. It just gets recycled over and over and over again. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and like I said, the ratings for this Peacemaker show is apparently plummeted pretty hard in season 2. It's not even making the charts for like top 10 shows anymore. And with streaming, it's very skewed because I know they do like week-long counts of viewership. So if you're not within like a certain range, you don't even get numbers or anything like that. So apparently, if this show's doing worse than that, it's not doing too well now versus how it's doing overall on streaming versus how it's doing on HBO Max or whatever the hell they're calling it now, because they keep changing it every 3 weeks. That can be a different topic of discussion, but it just seems like this whole thing doesn't have the impact that they were hoping for here. And like I said, the critics love it for the obvious reasons, but the audiences are just like, I can't stand this childish like nonsense anymore. Like I just can't do it. And that's pretty much all you're going to get from anything revolving around James Gunn. So next year, you're going to get Drunk Girl Boss, Bad Bitch, Supergirl. And then that's going to be the next superhero movie that you're going to get. And all of this is going... So this is what DC is doing, countering whatever the hell Marvel is doing at this point with their superhero mess with 75 actors who aren't even in the same room with one another and no one actually knows what's going on. It's like, guys, this superhero thing is so dead, and they just will not let it go.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's not. I don't think there's that great enthusiasm for what Marvel is putting out, or it will put out in the next year or two. So less enthusiasm, especially for a character that had a cameo. Even if you liked her interpretation, whatever interpretation of this drunk girl, you're not enthusiastic for it. And I'll just say that I would sooner watch the Helen Slater, Faye Dunaway Supergirl than watch the Superman or any of these other movies, because that one was terrible, but it was terrible in an amusing way. Where else could you see Peter O'Toole kind of humiliate himself? So I watched the original Supergirl from 1984. I think it was that was better than whatever Supergirl's gonna pop out now.
That's gonna be just a disaster. I can just see it now. But yeah, that's pretty much it there. So any other final thoughts?
I'll watch the new Supergirl if Faye Dunaway can be talked into being a witch again. So
I think my internal reaction just please God ended. That's pretty much where it's just where I'm at right now. Never seen The Sopranos. Well, I mean, like I said, there are a few big television shows that, if you're talking about actual good written television shows, I would recommend. Now, I will say this: it is not the most Christian television show out there, so I would not recommend it from that aspect. But if you're talking about generally good shows, it's one of the best written shows of all time. Just don't know.
So this is one of those things that I think is interesting. It's and maybe it's just my twisted mind or whatever, but I always view these things as being incredibly Christian in the sense that it's being highly critical of the characters it portrays, where it's it shows you time and again that guess what? This doesn't work. You can be a violent thug all you want, and guess what? The same problems you have, they're still staring you right in the face when you look in the mirror. So
I agree with you to a degree. Yeah. And I don't think you're wrong. It's just that it's the way that you perceive it, right? And we have this conversation many times about The Irishman, because people were trying to make the argument that The Irishman was glorifying gangsters and making it seem like gangster life was cool. It's dude, they either died young or they literally died in prison. That was the reality of everything that they have done in their life. That's not a glorification of anything.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, because we heard that about The Irishman and other Goodfellas too. It glorifies gangsters. Mm-hmm. But hey, at least Scorsese learned his lesson and never made fun of the MCU again. That's
I
why
mean,
it
look,
lost. That's why it lost all its 11 Oscar nominations or 10 Oscar nominations.
things like that are
Punishment.
always going to be glorified in the eyes of stupid people, but it's the same thing you could say about Tupac and that West Coast gangster mentality that is still popularized to this day. People still put that over, but it's like, do you not understand that Tupac lived to 26 and died? And based on the videos that we played of him, he's probably not in a good place right now. Like, do you understand that that was the reality of his life, and people kind of martyrize him like he was some kind of heroic figure when he really wasn't? But like I said, it's just the way that, you know, people perceive things. And, you know, like I said, you can't really expect stupid people to understand the true meaning of things. They'll just take the most shallow interpretation that they have of it and run with it with that. So, yeah. So I guess that's it. That's it for our show here tonight. So I didn't know I was going to have the last word on that one. But yeah, so that's our show. So once again, just letting everyone know how things are going to work. Barroom, starting in November, will be on Rumble, will not be on YouTube. So again, I will link you over to the Rumble side of things. If you guys don't have a Rumble account, go over there and get one, because this is where we're going to be. I'll have the link posted right there for you guys. And then, like I said, Bible Lens on Sunday is now going to be at 3 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. We're moving it up earlier so I can balance out some things that I have going on outside the show. Until then, I'll go ahead and flip it over to you guys over here. We'll start with Rick. What do you got coming up?
All right. Well, I've got more upcoming reviews of new films. I will be reviewing the new Kiss of the Spider Woman. I will be also reviewing more films for my Best Actress retrospective. And sadly, I'm still plunging through With Love, Megan. I obviously, don't suffer enough, so I need that. So that's pretty much it. Just reviews of new movies, old movies, and Duchess of Sussex. So, yeah, just keep your eye out for all that. Thank you very much. God bless.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, just more, just reviews, and of course, as always, hiding from ICE.
All right, you go do that. Rob.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go see After the Hunt on Friday, which is the new Luca Guadagnino movie that kind of deals with cancel culture on a college campus. Julia Roberts, Andrew Garfield, that black chick with the big front teeth from The Bear, whose name I can't. I don't know. It's something foreign sounding. I don't know. Just if you've seen The Bear, you know who I'm talking about. And she's been in other stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that, even though the critical reviews have been pretty terrible. But Christian Toto said it's actually definitely worth seeing and engaging with. So I'm looking forward to it now. And then I'm just continuing watching horror movies the rest of October. Obviously we'll have the random movie that's a reprieve from that, but I really do try to stick to that in October, November. So just follow me over my Twitter. You'll see what I'm watching. On Monday, I basically post what I watched over the weekend. Obviously it's not nearly what it is in the off season for football, but I still usually get 7-8 movies watched in a weekend. So just follow me over there. We'll talk about movies. But yeah, I'll see you next week.
All right. And then letting you know what I got coming up here. This coming Sunday, we'll have Bible Lens talk about the rise, I guess you can call it the Roman right. There's this weird right-wing movement that's happening right now. And a lot of people are gravitating towards it. And this is definitely a big, big problem. We'll talk about this in more detail. It'll be a continuation of our topic of Christian nationalism that I did for last week's show. We'll do that here on next Sunday. Outside of that, like I said, Barroom will be back next week. Go check out the site, societyreviews.com. I got a lot of content uploaded there, some stuff that you won't find here on the YouTube. Once I have that all scrubbed and ready to go, I'll update the YouTube site, and then I can bring back the 511 show, do a little bit more, I wouldn't say daily content, because I probably won't have enough time to do daily content, but definitely a lot more output here on this channel with some things we have coming up forward too. So yeah, I'll be working on a few things. I'm almost completely caught up. At this moment, I still have roughly about 4 movies to catch up on the year. There has been a couple of good ones over the last few months, but I'm still really not comfortable with calling anything particularly a great movie in 2025. There's been a few good ones, but there's nothing that stood out to be like, oh, this is the best movie of the entire year. Like, nothing like that, and which goes to show you just how bad this year has been up to this point. So outside of that,
you had Sinners and One Battle After Another. Stop it.
Yeah, right. Thank you for proving my point there. But until then, we're going to go ahead and sign off and get out of here. So, adios, good night, and goodbye. We're going short intro. I don't want to sit here for 3 minutes. So, good night, everyone.